Welcome to the Dynasty podcast. We are back 6 weeks in a row. I think we're finding our groove a little bit here, Ben.
World
I'm
record.
excited for what's that?
It's a world record for us, I think.
Yeah, consistency is king, right? You just have to keep plowing away, getting a little bit better each week. And we've committed to doing this every Wednesday, and every once in a while we might throw an extra one in, and depending on how the season's going. But so far, we're doing pretty darn good. So thanks to everyone for chiming in last week. It was a little bit of a quiet week. I think the last week of summer, a lot of people are kind of doing other things, and that was another long one. So we'll try to keep it a little bit shorter this week. We say that every week, but we are going to open up by just kind of talking a little bit about camp news and some of the different things we're hearing, which could either be complete BS or actually have a little weight behind it, and just maybe what we've heard from our own specific teams, and using that as an example about how much we're weighting those opinions from beat writers and just Twitter news and things of that nature. And then we're going to do the top 15 tight ends, which we should be able to keep pretty snappy. But it was interesting. There's a lot of names there can change teams' outlook for BC especially. So that's going to be pretty interesting. And then we're going to review the Ivy League. So using the same schedule as we had last week, or the same system. And I think I've at least cleaned up my grading a little bit on that, and I'll explain what I did to kind of balance some of it out. But yeah, should be a pretty good podcast for the next couple hours, and looking forward to it. So how
Yeah.
have you been? What's new this last week for you?
Uh, I don't know. Not a whole lot. I was doing a lot of stuff for my new house that I'm building, so that was fun and also just errand driven. And played my last golf match of the league against old Don and Gabe from Lola's, and we smoked them
Oh, nice.
and ruined
That's gotta feel
their
good.
chance to get first place. I think we ended up taking third, so just pretty good
Nice.
considering how
Oh, golf
bad I
game's getting
normally
better.
am. Yeah, yeah. Played good today, and then we ended up playing another 9 holes because it was just feeling good, and played with old Maddie and Snoop. It was gone. So I had 18
Nice.
holes today. Look at me.
I think it's a living the dream if you can have 18 a week. I mean, I think that's where I'd like to get to. I'm about nine holes a week these days, where I try to get out at least once during the working hours and go play a little executive course. I just got back from a 4-day golf trip in Kansas City and Omaha, which was cool. We shot 11 under in our scramble and didn't finish anywhere near the top, but I think 14 won it. A bunch of college basketball boosters and whatnot, so I think if you don't have a strong four, it's gonna be a struggle. It was fun though.
11
I'm a
under's
little
not
I'm a
bad.
little beat. Yeah, it was a clean score. We didn't have any bogeys. We had one eagle, which was exciting. We had one putt for like 35 foot that was a winding downhill putt that was exciting. Got a couple jumping chest bumps out of the day, and all for a good cause for the old alma mater's basketball team. So
Scrambles
beautiful
are
course in
fun,
Omaha.
especially in
Yeah,
those formats. It's easy to forget about bad shots, and then you can be the worst golfer and be the hero, like putts you're talking about, or just a really good chip. It's like it's a fun format. I like playing a lot of charity events like that. It's easy to just
I
have fun.
struggle a little bit at scrambles because I just, I'll try to swing way out of my shoes sometimes, and that's just not where my game's at anymore. But it's fun when someone puts it in the fairway and you can just try to grip it, rip it, and there's no real repercussions. I chipped really well. I was good from 150. Hit a couple good, really good drives, and I was hitting my 3 wood really well. So I don't know, maybe I just need to hit my 3 wood more often. But yeah.
Summer
So
golfing,
let's
maybe. Summer
jump
golfing into
into.
summer football. Summer training camp, actually. Summer training camp nonsense, and some of it's pretty exciting. I think,
Yeah,
to just kind of intro us into this, I've kind of been, I've always looked at a lot of beat writers and stuff like that, and like a lot of on heavy X, like following people and trying to just kind of get a feel of like what's going on. I like that's the best way to see clips too. highlight reels where you can, use your eye test and be like, man, that looks good. Doesn't always tell the story. But I just noticed this year that like the hater culture is so strong. And
Yeah.
it's like it's kind of what it is now. So it's really weird. And I think you even, we were talking earlier, you even mentioned like some AI stuff gets in there, and it's like all of a sudden you need to kind of look more at the highlights, and then try and not think too much of it if you don't understand the details or if you don't see them a lot, right? It's like you can't just take
Yeah.
one highlight and be like, "Ooh, okay, here we go," because like the context isn't there. I know that's what we like to do, but like there seems like every time somebody, and this is specifically with your and my team, I noticed is like Caleb Williams will have a clip where he misses a couple passes, and they're like, "This just isn't working. Ben Johnson is too hard
He's on
on
a
him, and
short
he's on a
leash.
short
Tyson
leash, and
Bagent's
this and
gonna
that."
start over the middle of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
and it was like
nonsense.
I saw a really terrible tweet by like an old beat writer that I actually used to read a lot for ESPN, Kevin Seifert, and he said, yeah, in these drills, the quarterbacks keep running a lot. That's usually a bad sign and shows that the offense is losing. But the coach came out and said we were intentionally running plays for scrambles. So it's like you
Mm.
have all these people making these like ideas, but they don't know what they're looking at, because specifically let's take the Vikings and the Bears. Okay, you have like new quarterbacks or coordinator combinations of guys who are incredibly aggressive play callers. So like those guys are just trying to throw everything at these guys to see what they'll do well, what they won't, where they want to lean on, like what's good when. So like just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean anything. They're all like learning parts. It's like this is what I want to
Well,
do with the offense, so this is how it's
they're
going to
also
go.
play they're also playing the same guys every day in practice. It's just like when I played college basketball, I'd be going up against a wing that I played with every single day. If he didn't know what my twitches were, how I was going to get my shot off, what I was going to do when I catch the ball, like I mean, then he's an idiot. He shouldn't be out on the field. You're going against him in individual drills. You're going against him in 5-on-5. You're going against him in the full court. I mean, in 3-on-3 drills. So it's insane to think that kind of hypertension I think you would always almost give that to the defense in a lot of ways. But at the same time, it's anybody with a phone and a Twitter account can try to be an expert. And I just don't,
Yeah.
I'm almost ready to get off Twitter completely because it's just, like you said, it's just so negative all the time. And everybody just wants to shit on someone. And, with Caleb, it's like, oh, he's painting his nails and he's not a leader. And I don't have time for that shit. Like, again, kind of back to the eye test. When they play a little bit in the preseason, which I'm hoping that this year that teams put out, there's only 3 preseason games, right? And I think every year, like the last couple of years, teams have started pretty slow in their opening games. Cincinnati's 0-4 to start the season. The last 2 seasons are 1-3. Like they can't afford to start 1-4 or 1-3 or 0-3, right? Like they have to get out and start playing. So I'm hoping we see a little bit more in the preseason. People are going to get hurt
Well,
in
I don't know if you
practices. They're
I
going to
don't know
get
if
hurt.
you saw, but they're playing all their starters against the Eagles. Like Joe Burrows, I think he said they're going to play Joe Burrow a half. I'm
They
like,
should.
I
They should.
I don't know about that. I know they get slow starts, but I think that's bad coaching and bad preparation. I don't think going and playing and risking in the preseason is going to really do it, in my
Well, I think
opinion.
at least 3 or 4 series in each game. I think that's a fair assessment, and maybe a half towards the last game, or maybe a quarter. But just not to play your starters at all and get them going. Like you can't tell me that they're not, in the family game when all the family comes there and the lights are on that they're not playing at 85%. And an injury can almost happen when you're only playing 85% and you're slowing up when you normally accelerate
Yeah.
or, an injury can happen at any time. Non-contact injuries can happen in a drill. I think I don't know. I mean, it's
Well,
it's a
most of
long
the
season. I
injuries,
understand it, but
most of the injuries these days are happening in these joint practices because coaches prefer the joint practice intensity because that's like a behind closed doors, quote unquote, right? You have some people
right.
with some phones and stuff, but like you get to go hard with your players against their players. It's calculated. The coaches agree what they want to do. Let's work on this. Let's work on this. Okay, we want to work on that. Okay, great. And it's like training exercises versus
Yeah.
where, a lot of these preseason games, everyone's just trying to make a name for themselves. And so that's where I think like it gets a little different. But I think it still happens. I think now the trend is these guys that need to make plays. They're the ones that start the fights, going too hard, tackling too much. You got to kind of make a name for yourself. That's happening in these joint practices, which is crazy. I don't know. I need to look at this more, but I saw that the New England Patriots are they're in a joint practice right now. I think with the Colts. There was like some brawl that like Vrabel got in and then like got hit and was
Yeah, I
like
saw that
bleeding
too.
or something. Of course, Vrabel's
Trying to break it up.
well, but next week we have a joint practice with them also. So I think that's like wild. Like Vrabel set up two joint practice weeks, and like those are super intense. And usually you'll play the starters a tad after that, but like you've gotten enough reps that week to show it all. So I think like for this weekend, I know the Vikings are going to play their starters because I think they know they're going to get so much run next week then unless like it's going really poorly, they probably won't play a lot of JJ McCarthy because I think they're just going to get
Yeah.
all the reps and looks that they want in those joint practices.
Well, here's a few points. Obviously, you can't have your starting quarterback get hurt, so that's why they don't play in the preseason too much. If something goes down to your starting quarterback, your team's pretty much fucked for the rest of the year, right?
Yeah.
So I understand them playing a couple series. Rookies, I think, should be playing a lot more than they typically do. I think it's the preseasons for fringe players. You got to make team assessments to see who's going to make the 53-man roster. Those guys that are in battles need that time more than the guys that are already solidified as starters. But hopefully we'll get to see some good preseason ball. I think from the Bears standpoint, I'm just what I like hearing, and this is kind of more just people that I trust a little bit more than just your random guy that could be a Packers fan that's just shitting on the Bears because he just hates the Bears. Is that Ben Johnson's being very demanding, that they're having very physical practices. He's holding people accountable. It doesn't matter who they are. Like there's people on the depth chart like Tyreek Stevenson who's battling with another cornerback for the number 2 spot. Well, I would have thought Tyreek was going to easily have that slot, right?
Yeah.
So I think he's put in a different culture and a different system that's trying to make people respond, and I think that's what Caleb Williams needed. I think that's so he's pushing them hard, and he's kind of a no nonsense old school coach, which everybody was kind of like, I don't know what kind of culture he's going to be able to build, and he seems like kind of a computer geek, but at the end of the day, like I love hearing that about the Bears.
Ben Johnson is like I think it always gets overblown that the gritty like that was Dan Campbell. But Ben Johnson's a crazy hard ass and like hardcore accountability guy. And like I think I heard Montez Sweat maybe was talking about how like he's like, dude, like I've never seen accountability like this. It's like you fuck up and don't do your job. He's like
Well, DJ Moore said it too. He's just like, it doesn't matter who you are.
Out. Get out of the huddle, sit down, watch how this is supposed to do. Let something like they don't care how if you're a blue chip player, they don't care who the fuck you are. So there's like accountability up and down the line, and that does build good cultures. There's different ways to build cultures, but like that one clearly worked in Detroit, and like I agree with you.
Well,
I'm not going
to push your best players more than you push anybody else too, and your expectations for a second round draft pick like Luther Burden. The issues with him. Does he have high character? We're going to push him hard and see if he responds. And I think that's what I like hearing. I think but pushing Montez Sweat to be a leader, and if you can do it to him, just like not Parcells, Belichick did to Brady. Belichick rode Brady's ass, and he's the best player of all time.
Well, then
So I think,
he makes other people be accountable also because he comes by part of the system. So you need the captains to come in and be the guys. And Caleb Williams might not be one of those guys, but he probably doesn't have to be. Like, there's enough players on the lines, on like, wherever they'll step up and like.
from everything I've read about Caleb Williams, is everybody likes him, and he's a fun guy to be around. He might not just be your in your face kind of guy. He's fiery, like he plays fiery. Like that kid took so many hits last year, got up, ran off the field, and came back. Like I that's what I loved about him. Anyway. I think it might take a year. The first year of an offense with a new coach, it might take 4 or 5 ball games before they get rolling. But they're going to be tough when I think it starts counting in the division, and we'll see. I mean, who knows?
The Lions, I think, went 9-8 Dan Campbell's first year, but like you knew they were going in an awesome direction, right? Like they didn't get the playoffs, but you're like, man, that team's going to be a problem next year. They're like clearly figuring it out. So even if you guys are an 8 or 9-8 team, but it ends like where you're like in a lot of games, you just don't quite have the reps and like the grit yet, and that culture like just progresses from there. Like that's fine, man. It's not a lost season because you got just
we were in a lot of games last year. The problem was we couldn't come from behind ever since I've been a Bears fan with a quarterback that could win a ball game in the last 2 or 3 minutes of a ball game and put someone away, or come back and make a drive that got us in position to win. If we can do that this year, we're going to win more than 5 ball games. And so I think our defense will be better as well. So, I mean, it's obviously the Bears always have good preseason hype and they always have a good offseason, but it doesn't matter until the first few games. We're going to find out week 1 when the Vikings play the Bears, and I mean that's going to be an interesting ball game. So
we're not going to have Jordan Addison.
Won't have Jordan Addison. I mean, new quarterback, his first game starting. I think that's going to be interesting. I think that's at the Bears too, and they're 1.5 favorites, which means that the Vikings would be 4.5 point favorites if they were at home. And so it'll be a big first ball game playing a league division rival, and so I mean it'll be exciting to watch. And I just hope they play well and it's a good ball game and that we put some points on the board. Win or lose, I think it's going to be a good, highly competitive season. So. Anywho, yeah, I think I'm almost ready to just get rid of Twitter anyway, or just get a account, start fresh, delete everything, and just pick 5 or 6 guys that I trust, and all I follow is football, because the rest of it is just nonsense. You can't go anywhere these days and find something.
Because these algorithms are maddening, and they like I did a new account as well where I just followed beat writers, and suddenly it's just like filtering in like political and stupid like world shit, and it's like you just have to like take the time and go and say I don't like this content,
right?
And I did that with like 20 times on nonsense, and then it's like, ooh, this is like a lot cleaner, like in a weird way. If you can get that out, it's a pain in the ass because it's like trying to force you to look at shit you don't want, and then if it's like you leave it there, it's like, oh, you like this, and it's like maybe you're talking to somebody.
Well, the bottom line is negative stuff gets way more clicks. I mean, so that's just the nature of everything. So it doesn't pay for people to say something positive about somebody in any aspect, whether it's sports or politics or just society.
I think once you hear multiple beat writers talking about a certain player, and then you hear players praising said player, that's no longer noise and something you can pay attention to, right? Like I like looking for that stuff, and I like the highlight plays all day, but I also kind of want to look at a press conference where, you get the offensive coordinator talking about it or whatever, but like that's what that is good for, because somebody will feed you those bites quickly, but I agree with you. If you're not careful, it's just like nonstop, like, just terrible reporting and like taking things out of context. Like I saw like in some walkthrough, Aaron Rodgers just like slowly like threw a ball, and everyone's like, he's so slow, he's cooked, and it's like, I think Aaron Rodgers is cooked as well, but I'm not going to look at a like warm up practice rep and like just be like,
They could
I'm
be telling
right
that
about
we just
something
want
terrible.
60% speed on this one. 60% speed, everybody. Like you don't
Dude,
know what the hell there's no context to it. It's
I
just
yeah, I
nonsense.
saw this. I saw this really good podcast that I watched, and it's like it's offensive linemen who talk about it, and like one of the guys who's now an agent, he was talking about how much he hates how people like will chart like passes and chart things, and like he had a really good breakdown about like exactly what we're talking about. It's like you don't know what they're working on. If they say like you're gonna roll over, you're gonna throw it, even if the guy's not open, you need to throw it, and
Correct.
it's just like we need to see if we can get this type
Right.
of separation. We need to work on this route. We need this guy to work on. You don't know who's working on what across the board. So it's like, ooh, look at this terrible pass.
They could
But
be
like,
saying, telling the quarterback, we want you to throw the ball into these spots to see if there's enough space to get it there. It might not work, and it's an interception, no big deal. We want you to throw interceptions in in practice. So Caleb Williams not going to drop back, get chased by three people, throw the ball up in the air on 3rd down and 10 just because in a
yeah,
regular season game.
that's
So
why.
it's some of it's just silly. But yeah, to your point, I think we'll end on this, I guess, is that I like following other players talking, highly about the younger guys and their work ethic and things of that nature. I like hearing who's in the ones and who's getting different action and red zone and things of that nature. And I think there's some guys that are maybe on the fringe that you can kind of pick up a few things that like, oh, this guy's a player. Like he comes to work every day. He's like a seasoned pro and he's out working everybody because that's kind of where the weight and you can make a big difference in BC is some of these fringe guys that maybe make a team and on special teams and they're not going to be on the practice squad this year. So it's some of that stuff. It's not the big name players I care about. The depth charts I don't care about 2 weeks into camp because it's just coaches are just basically putting the vets ahead and the rookies got to earn their spot and it's just all silly. So
Yeah, and
uh,
I think there's a few like in this league specifically in BC, like we have guys like that we, invested in who are probably in battles, especially when it comes to these kicking and punt returns. Like that's where a lot
yeah,
of these running backs and these wide receivers can kind of get us some value that we desperately need, So like, you can kind of wait and just see where it all lies. But if you got a wide receiver that you thought was a shoe in for returning kicks and punts, and all of a sudden he's been replaced in camp, and like he might get cut. You need to kind of it's good to know those things just in case you got to make some moves before the season comes through.
right. Absolutely. All right, man. Good. Some talking points there. We'll maybe dive in a little bit more to some camp battles next week and give it a little bit more time, and definitely going into the preseason games, highlight some people that are maybe on the rise or on the decrease. But let's move on to the top 15 tight ends this week. Pretty interesting list. So why don't you give us your first five like we did last week, and I'll chime in with mine.
Yeah, I had a really hard time doing this after two. So I had Brock Bowers one and Trey McBride two, and I think they're like 1A, 1B. I think Brock Bowers needs to be one. But I like Trey. I really believe in Trey McBride. I think they're both really amazing. And then after that, there's a lot of interesting players because I kept having to think, okay, this exercise 3 years, right? That's what we said.
Yeah.
Dynasty 3 years. So it's like, okay, that puts some of the old guys a little up there, but then it's like some of the started looking at the age of some of the guys, and you're like, "Ooh, man, I didn't realize that guy was that old." So, for me, I just for my third tight end, I kept Sam Laporta there, and I know Ben Johnson is gone, but I think he's still super reliable, and I think Goff is just going to use him when he needs to, and I think he's just going to be a top end tight end. He's still very young. For the next 3 years, I can't see him possibly falling off in any facet. And for number four, I put TJ Hawkinson there. I moved like these next bunch around a bunch, but I think TJ Hawkinson, if I believe that JJ McCarthy will be our starter for 3 years, and the proof was in the pudding on how much he used Colston Loveland. So like I just think he's going to get first downs. He's going to use. I think he's going to use them a lot. So I think his workload, if we keep him around for 3 years, is going to be like pretty good. Especially if Jordan Addison isn't with us, for much longer. We'll see how the Vikings like keep him long term. After the troubles he keeps getting in. So I have him. I have him 4. I know it's probably high. I put Kittle at 5, and that's just because he's older. He's like a little up there in age. I think he's 31. And I think for the next 3 years he's going to be like Travis Kelce's 3 years. They're still going to be very good, right? He's still going to be a dude. As long as he isn't hurt, he's going to get lots of targets and he's going to eat. So those are my top 5.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, solid reason, and I'll add some stuff on some of those guys I don't have in my top 5 when I get to them. But our first 2 are the same. Brock Bowers, number 1. I just think the first 2, Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, have the potential to lead their team in receiving and be the number 1 target. And I don't think that there's anybody else on this list that really can say that in the next 2 or 3 years. Brock Bowers is, just a complete asset. I think he's more than just a tight end. I think he's just a target hog. I think he's 22. McBride's 25. So I gave Bowers the edge there. Trey McBride, I think his touchdown, output has been. I think he has 2 touchdowns the first 2 years. I mean, that's obviously going to increase. I think their offense will be a little bit better, but I can see him, leading the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns this year, perhaps. But then he has Marvin Harrison, who I also think is going to extend a little bit this year. So we'll see. I actually have George Kittle number 3. The age kind of was a little bit nerve-wracking to me, but he just is such a physical specimen. As long as he stays healthy, although they did report that because the smelling salts got banned, he might retire, which he was doing on every drive, which seems. But that makes a lot of sense because that guy is jacked up on every play in every game. But I think he's, with this year especially, Brock Purdy's going to rely on him. Their wide receiver core is a little bit questionable with Ayuk being out, and then Jennings kind of not sure about his status and being a little bit unhappy with his contract. And then Ricky Pearsall is younger, so I think Kittle will just be Mr. Reliable as long as he plays 14, 15 games and stays healthy, which he's done pretty consistently over the last couple of years. And then I have Sam Laporta number 4. Kind of dropped a little bit lower just because I'm not completely sure what's going to happen with the new offensive coordinator and Ben Johnson not being there. But he's still relatively young and is just such a reliable target. Really great on third down. He's been great in the red zone. I think their offense is going to regress a little bit, and I think Jamison Williams is going to have a bigger role. But he's going to be a top 10 tight end for the next 3, 4, or 5 years without question, probably longer. And then my 5 is probably kind of like you, probably a little bit high, but believing in the hype and just the type of receiving tight end he could be is Colston Loveland. I drafted him everywhere I could, pretty high. I think he's a good blocker. He can stay on the field in blocking situations, but I think up the seam and just getting open on third downs and being in that Ben Johnson offense that's already proven that a rookie or first or second year tight end could Laporta had one of the best rookie tight ends before Trey McBride in the history of football. So I think Colston Loveland, if the only issue I worry about him is there's a lot of mouths to feed in year 1, but that could be beneficial for him in the red zone, especially if the offense takes a big step forward and they put up more points. So those are my top 5.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I decided not to put any rookies in my top 5. Just because they haven't played, and I don't want to get too far into that trap. But I'll delve into how bullish I am on the rookie class in general as we go on, and I do have him 6 for me. So Colston Loveland, I just don't. Every time I'm trying to talk myself out of how bad does it have to go? Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams would have to have an epic failure for this pick not to do what Ben Johnson wants it to do. Like, we talked about it earlier about maybe it takes 2 years. And I think, to your point, I don't think they have the running backs that they want this year. I think they'll probably do that next year, use really high and aggressive draft capital like they did with Gibbs over in Detroit, and maybe even in free agency if they have to. But like, I honestly think that this will be a year that they might be a little more frustrated with what they can get out of their running game, which will get a lot of 3rd and 6s and 3rd and 5s, and like I could really see Loveland just cleaning up on those. So if he can get that type of volume in year 1, I mean, it's only going to get better from there. So I do agree with you. I mean, I didn't want to put any of them by a rule of thumb in the top 5, but I put him 6. So, and then number 7, I had him a little lower, but I had to move him up. It's Tucker Kraft, because I think he's like really disrespected as a wide receiver or a tight end, a receiving tight end, and like I think Jordan Love uses him really well. I think LaFleur likes to use him. I don't think he's last year was a fluke. Like, I think he's going to be a really top end, reliable tight end. Not on this level that we see and we're used to with like the George Kittle types over their career. But let's say he finishes, 6th or 7th the next 3 years. I mean, I could totally see that. He's young as well, and he's shown really well at a young age. So I just think a lot of people kind of aren't really giving him the respect that I think he deserves. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. And then after that, I have the other rookie, Tyler Warren, who I couldn't put him higher. I could have probably put him lower, and the reason is because I just don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be long term, and it's like really iffy. But he is actually the only guy that kind of could lead his team in catches, like if the quarterback just can't do much else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, Adonai Mitchell has been balling out. Like, I actually talk about training camp stuff, man. I saw some stuff today, and like the other team that was reporting. I think they were playing Baltimore. Sorry, I think I might have said New England before. Baltimore, and I heard the defensive players saying like they couldn't guard him. So that's a little crazy. So we'll see on that. But I think he has freak show talent. Like, he's super big. He's got already highlights reels all up and down camp, one-handed catches. So I like betting on him. 21-year-old. You got some run room. You know what I mean? And then like my next one is probably going to be the most controversial, and I'm not fully drinking the Kool-Aid yet. I mean, I don't have shares of this guy, but I think Kyle Pitts is, first of all, I think people forget that he's only 24.
Yeah.
So he's still crazy young, right? Like he's like, Tyler Warren is 23. Excuse me, I said Loveland's 21. But like, when you think about that, he's 24, and it's like, okay, well, is he going to be a real tight end? Like, well, what if they just use him as a receiving tight end, and that's what he ends up, and plays a lot of slot and stuff like that. And this year specifically, I know him and Michael Penix Jr. are like, I think they golf they're like golf buddies. They like hang out every day. So like, I think there's going to be a concerted effort by that quarterback to like give him these opportunities. And, there's risk that he just isn't good enough to stay on the field enough to make enough plays. But I mean, if he gets on a good run and gets the trust of Penix, he can have like a top 5 season this year and be a top 5 guy moving forward. So that's a little, that's an aggressive spot, at 9 for him. And then 10, I have another. It's aggressive as well, but Isaiah Likely. Like, whenever it's that guy's time, I think he got banged up again, and he does get hurt a lot, so that sucks. But I just think Isaiah Likely's like, every time you watch him, when he gets opportunities, like, it's like you were saying, it's like, why wouldn't you just give him all the opportunities? So it's like, well, Mark Andrews is still very good, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so the embarrassment of riches at tight end, it's like, okay, well, if they move on from Andrews, if that's next year, likely could be crazy, crazy, like up with those other two guys. Honestly, I think he's that talented. So those are my next five.
Nice. Yeah, I mean we're pretty much in line here. We only have a couple that are not on each other's lists and pretty similar where we have guys. I had Tyler Warren at number 6. So the two rookies going back to back. I think every year for the last 3 years, one rookie has finished in the top 3 overall in the season. So that's an interesting one. Bowers did, Trey McBride did, and Sam Laporta did. So one of those guys I think has a shot to finish in the top 3. Tyler Warren, you mentioned Adonai Mitchell. They also have Downs, who I think has really ascended and could be kind of that behind the line of scrimmage target. And then they have Pittman, who obviously has been pretty reliable throughout his career. So I don't think he still has the same target share that Brock Bowers and Trey McBride or even Colson Loveland might have. But I think they're more talented at wide receiver. The reason why I have him further down is just the quarterback play, and I think that'll get resolved. It sounds like Richardson's playing a little bit better in camp, and I think Jones is pretty solid too, better than what they've had the last couple of years. So I mean, and again, I think they'll scheme him in different ways. I think he's more of a not a Travis Kelce by any stretch, but I think they might have him in the backfield running out like a Juszczyk or something like that. He's, I could see him lining up and moving Richardson over and having him take snaps at the goal line and just rushing in. So I think he's going to be an impact player. The team's just not going to be as good. The offense is not going to be as good. So I have him a little bit further down the list. Hawkinson I have as number 7. Like you mentioned, with Addison out for 3 games, like he had an explosive 3 games. He's coming off the injury. And I think for people forget how talented he was coming out of Iowa. Still relatively young, 28 years old. I think he's going to have a bounce back year now that he's had a little bit of time to recover from the injury. I legitimately think he could be the number 2 receiver on Minnesota's team this year. I think a tight end is young quarterback's best friend, and I think they'll find ways to get him the ball as well, make him an impact player, and that's all dependent on how Addison comes back after being out for 3 games. But obviously he's gonna probably be the number 2 target. But if he can have 3 good games to start the season and score 20 fantasy points and 3 touchdowns, like he'll get a jump start on some of these other guys that I think are pretty high on the list. So I don't think tight end 7 is unrealistic for him at all. The first one that we kind of disagreed on is I had David Njoku at number 8, which seems really high. He's older. He's 29 years old, but that dude's a physical freaking specimen. And even though they brought in Fannin, quarterback play is probably going to suck. I think he has the potential to maybe sign with a different team and get moved on. And I think he can play for another 3 or 4 years and be really impact. He just seems to keep getting better and stronger as he's progressed, kind of like some of those old school tight ends that take 3 or 4 years to really make a difference in the league. So it'll be interesting to see who's playing quarterback for them this year and how do they utilize both of the tight ends. But I still think he's a matchup nightmare. And I think he's going to probably have a top 10 year this year, although I bet against him in the past in doing that. Tucker Kraft is who I have at tight end 9. I wanted to have him higher as well. I legitimately think that he can be the number 2 receiver on his team. I think obviously they seem like they got a pretty good dog in Golden. I'm not sold on any of the other wide receivers necessarily in Green Bay, like we've discussed. Sounds like Christian Watson is maybe a little bit ahead of schedule on his injury. So if they have Golden and Watson on the outside and they have Jaden Reed doing his things out of the backfield and reverses, I think their offense could be really, really legit this year, which is kind of scary to say as a Bears fan. But I have him high as well. And I think people are sleeping on him a little bit. So part of that, I think, early on had to do with they drafted the other tight end pretty high. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but and I think they even drafted, what was his name, higher than Tucker Kraft. So that maybe kind of just his name wasn't in the forefront as much. But he had a pretty solid year last year and is ascending. And if their offense is better, I think he can easily have 60, 70 receptions, lots of touchdowns, and have a pretty solid season. And he's
Musgrave
super
is
young,
the guy
so.
you're talking about, Corey.
Yeah, Luke Musgrave. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I couldn't pull that out of my head. But, and then tight end 10. I mean, this is crazy. But if Travis Kelce plays 2 more years, he seems kind of locked in, and I think he wants to go out in style. Like if you get him for 2 of the next 3, and he finishes top 5 in his Travis Kelce, even if he's only having 5 or 6 really great games, and it's not quite the highest usage rates that he's had in the past, like. I think their offense is going to be explosive this year. I mean, I don't think they're going to hold back at all, and I think Mahomes is going to throw it way more. And I just can't bet on that old dog having a couple more really good seasons. And then he's going to retire regardless, right? So he's going to go out on top, I think, in a lot of ways as long as he stays healthy and just being in a little bit better shape. It appears he's pretty locked in, and I think he wants to kind of regain his glory a little bit. So those are my top 10.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, the next 5 was tricky.
Yeah.
I changed my mind a ton. I think the next 2 guys I have, which is Dalton Kincaid at 11 and Travis Kelce at 12. And I'm okay with where you have him at 10. I mean, I put him at 12 because I'm the same way. I can't see him playing more than 2 years. Like,
right.
It's hard, but like, if he is really in great shape and he's not, Fat Kelce from like the Taylor Swift tour, and now he wants to step his game up and be, better. If you get 2 good years of top 5 Kelce, it's, to your point, it's money in the bank,
Well, you know what they say though, Ben. There's a hot girl out there everywhere that some guy's tired of fucking. So I mean, at some point the magic wears off, and he's back to being Travis Kelce a little bit. So
he's already made more money with his podcast and his brand now that he has, than he ever did making football, probably. So,
I think that was my first. That was my first cuss word of the pod too. So
well done. We've been keeping it pretty calm. But Kincaid, I have him at 11, and like I could have him off this 15 because like I don't really know what I want Kincaid to be. I think he can be what he was as a rookie, but like I don't know why. What's the explanation for going down so much? Like if you have that volatility with like a top 5 season and then like a top 16 season or 18 season, like that's pretty frustrating, like I don't know where I like want to gamble. I don't think I even own any Kincaid anywhere because I just can't figure out how to value him, or if wherever I value him, I just definitely don't value him as much as other people do. But even then, like I have him at 11. He's super young still. He has potential. He's got the measurables to be a great tight end. So, we'll see. And then I just did the slew of Kool-Aid rookie picks for the following, mostly because guys like Njoku and Goddard, they're older, like 29 to 32 years of age seasons. Like it's pretty outlier to be good.
Yeah.
We just talked about like I think even Kittle's 31, and we're kind of like, well, maybe 3 more years. But he's an absolute specimen, And I don't know if Goddard and Njoku are. Njoku, I worry if he gets moved on from, if he's a Stefanski kind of like product, Will he be a good tight end in somebody else's offense? I don't think we've seen that. I think he's just been good since he's been with Stefanski, who's very good at using the tight end. So I have Mason Taylor for the Jets, Terrence Ferguson for the Rams, and then Elijah Arroyo for Seattle. And I could put these guys can go in any order for me right now. I just think they're all very young, right? Like this is the crazy thing about this class is like there was a lot of fifth year seniors guys. There's a lot of 24-year-olds that came into this, especially running backs, right? I think RJ Harvey's 24. But these tight ends that came in were all young, right? And and coaches were very, very high on them, right? Like Mason is 21, like and Ferguson's 22, Elijah Arroyo's 22. So it's like, all right, that's that's like going way in on like what would be perceived as not a lot of experience at tight end. And so I think, for me, I think all three of those players were those coaches traded up to get them, right? So it's like, okay, you're giving more capital to come up and get these guys because you like them so much. I mean, Elijah Arroyo, there's like Jimmy Graham talk coming around, like crazy talk, but they cut Noah Fant. So it's like, all right, I hear like Tyler Higbee can't even hang with Terrence Ferguson, and Mason Taylor's really good. Like, and he doesn't really have competition there either. So when I look at these positions, it's like so I can get a guy who's 21, 22 in an offense that has no one else with coaches who traded up to get him, and that's why I stuck, rookie fever, man. It was crazy, but I was like, would I trade Dallas Goedert for any of these three guys? Yes. Would I personally trade David Njoku for any of those three guys? And the answer to me is yes, and so that's why I put him there.
Yeah. No, that's good reasoning. For my 11 and 12 and 13, I could have put these guys in any spot. I think these are all three non-traditional tight ends, and we have kind of this. They all three had this expectation of being kind of more of an inline big receiver, and that's Isaiah Likely at 11. I had Dalton Kincaid at 12 and Kyle Pitts at 13. And I think really this year is kind of a make it break it year for all of those guys to see if they're even on this list next year, because obviously Likely Andrews is still there. He's been a little bit banged up in camp, but he's just such a unique tight end that I kind of see as just a big receiver. Same thing for Dalton Kincaid. His rookie season was great, and I think he was just a little bit banged up last year, like we talked about. I still see a vision for him where he could be like a Colston Loveland or vice versa, to where he's kind of their number two guy and kind of moved around all over the field and creating matchup problems. And then Kyle Pitts, like you said, he's only 24 years old, and that guy's pedigree is just absolutely amazing. I think the coaching shift and the fact that they have a new quarterback, that they got to find ways. He doesn't have any wide receivers that should be taking targets away from him outside of Drake London. So if he can't figure it out this year, then I don't think I can keep giving him the pedigree talk, and he's just a complete legit athlete. But I think this is a year where he could easily finish in the top 10 if they get rolling and their offense is better. So those three are pretty interchangeable to me. I'm not ready to give up on them. I think they've had pretty solid, they're still all very young, and they have decent quarterback play, obviously, with Lamar and Allen being the top two, and then we'll see what's the deal with Penix. So 14, I did put Dallas Goedert up there. Just a side note, Zach Ertz finished in the top 7 last year. He was 34. So I think in a different situation, I still think he could have 3 productive years. Philadelphia's offense is just so, legit and controlled. They're going to put up points, and they just use him pretty consistently. So it's not unfathomable that he's going to be a top 10, 12 tight end for the next 3 years. And then for 15, I like all three of the tight ends you mentioned. Ferguson scares me a little bit because of what's being talked about with Stafford and his back, and I don't know how much of that is just noise or it's just an older vet that's kind of being precautionary. I think he's kind of like those other three, Likely, Kincaid, and Pitts. He's a move tight end that obviously under McVay, that if he can get some clock this year, he could have a really big season if Stafford's healthy. I wouldn't be super happy if Jimmy Garoppolo played 8 games, but still super young. But I actually went with Mason Taylor over all of them just because of where he was drafted, the lack of competition. I think Fields is going to be a little bit better than everybody thinks, and he utilized Cole Kmet a lot more than people think that he did when he was at the Bears, and Cole Kmet had a pretty solid season under him, especially in the red zone. And he's super athletic. I think he can make big splash plays. I think he's a tough matchup. So I gave him the edge over those other 3 guys. And the only other person I was really thinking about is Pat Freiermuth, who, if they hadn't signed Jonnu Smith, would have been in my top 15 with Rodgers being there. So I think honestly, we were all relatively close in the people that we had in our top 15. Njoku and Goddard were the only 2 that we completely, disagreed with, and Njoku being the one that I have ranked pretty high and you don't even have on your board. So, and then I think you didn't have Goddard, and then you had the 2 other rookies. So it was pretty consistent and pretty close to where we had everybody ranked, with a lot of leeway going in each direction. So
yeah, and I think over the 3 years, the quarterback argument is a good one for all 3 of them. It's like, okay, Fields for a year. If it works out, they extend him. That's good. I do worry about Stafford's age. So who's up next for that? I think McVay will get a guy he likes, and it'll be okay, but you never know. And, is Sam Darnold going to turn into a pumpkin? So there is risk on those 3, but, again, it is.
Nicely done, buddy. That was one of our most clean top 15 reviews of us doing that. I like the way we did that. That was beautiful work.
Well done.
All right, let's move into the Ivy League. And this is your guys' moment to shine. We get to talk about you, and we've wrapped up the first 2 segments in 51 minutes, so we should be able to give this a good solid hour.
Is this where we queue up the one shining moment, or is that at the end of our reviews after we?
Well, I got to tell you, there's been so much positive interaction in the league, and people, like I kind of said in chat, I think, and I'm not going to harp on this, but some of the negativity that was removed from this league has allowed people to kind of step in and have a bigger voice and not feel like they were going to get shit on, or, there's always going to be some dramatic undertone of people talking shit. I think that's what I've liked most, is like watching New Day and Harley kind of do his stuff. Like he's great at it, and that just makes me want to get better at doing our podcast. And we definitely have to have him on, and I think it's just been so much more positive. So I can't give the league enough credit. Like, it's just so nice to go in the chat every day and talk about a little bit of life, talk about movies and some of the other stuff we've kind of brought up, and then just know that there's not going to be some blow up in the league chat or on the message boards every 5 minutes. So I'm just so happy with where the league's going, and it just makes you want to invest more time knowing that, kind of like in our opening, like not everything that you say is going to turn into a negative and a cockfight with someone that you were never intending to have. So I just encourage everybody, the new owners, anybody that wants to come on the pod. I know Mike Saquon has reached out and said he's willing to do it. We still got to get Dan, if he can ever get his internet and stop like a trucker in Arkansas from driving over his power lines. We'll be in good shape getting him on as a guest. We'd love to have Mike, some of the old school guys, rejoin us. They're always great at their input. So let us know. Big Beefy Brad, I think, would be an awesome person to have on the podcast. He's super analytical. You could talk a little bit about his fantasy board game. And I just think there's so many great minds in this league, and everybody has a different perspective that they should all have a voice if they want one. So
that's a great segue to this grading system, which is exactly just our opinions and our values on how we view some of these players. We'll get to go back. Another reason why I like this, Corey, is like we'll get to go back and see where the league ranked and where we had them, right? And how right
absolutely
we were, and the people that we were not giving the respect to can get their flowers, and we'll definitely give them to them, once we get
absolutely. 100%, buddy. All right, the first team we have up in the Ivy League is Mr. Fleece City.
Yeah, Fleece City. You want me to go first on the grades?
Yeah.
Okay, so for Fleece, I gave his quarterback a B+. Now, like, I've always been pretty consistent that I just want to give Bs for the quarterback position, because it just feels like it wasn't difficult to make a good value, and it's pretty outlierish if you ended up getting like an incredible streaming deal of a quarterback. And I almost gave this one an A because it's like the Commanders, and they're going to score so many points. But you got to hold out season one with 2 years left, right? So if he is very good this year, he's going to get very expensive next year. And then it's one
Yep.
more year, and now you're at a franchise tag. Now, granted, man, like in how many points he scores, that's going to be worth the price. But like it's interesting when you're in the quarterback game when everyone's got dollar quarterbacks or super cheap quarterbacks, you know, and then you got you start creeping up to $100. It takes a big chunk of your budget away. Now, a guy like uh, Jaden Daniels can give you 100 extra points, 150 extra points at
That's
the
right.
position, then it's kind of worth it, right? So for me, it's
Yeah.
just if there was a little, the $30 is fine. It's a good price, man. But if there was just a few more years on the contract, and he hadn't, he's already got the season one holdout, so like I took that in consideration. I probably should have gave him an A minus instead of a B plus, but I gave him a B.
Yeah, I gave him the A. I mean, like to your point, a guy scores 536 points, I think, is worth the extra salary. I mean, I franchised the Bears. Caleb Williams, I think at like $45. That's obviously creeped up because of the cost that sometimes is applied in the auction. But I think he can finish in the top three. I think there will be regression with him this year. I've talked about that in the past, but he proved everything that you would want in a quarterback in his rookie season last year. So to me, it wasn't really even a hard A. I would gladly franchise him, for an extra 3 years, if especially if he proves, even if he scores 475 points and is 85 points less. Like I think that's such a valuable position, and you can make up the cost somewhere else instead of just having a quarterback that's not even sure to start the whole season, or it's a competitive team and they got or non-competitive team and they got to draft someone the following season, and we all know how those rookies pan out. So that hit rate's not very high, even if they have to go get a new guy. I'm all for taking one of the top 3, 5 quarterbacks in Dynasty and paying him his money and what he's worth. So I gave him an A.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I probably should have given him an A as well, but here we are. So we got to differ at some spots. Um, Speaking of like weird ranges, his running backs, and I don't want to get ahead of myself with wide receivers, but I had these both on the fringe of like A minus B plus, right? And so I gave him the A minus for the running back because I just think that he's got young, cheap contracts, and I think Trey Benson will be the guy eventually. I think he's going to get a good workload this year. I like Caleb Johnson a lot, and I'm a Jaden Blue believer. It feels like maybe at worst he's going to be two. It sounds like your boy Williams might be okay. But those when you got three really good options on young contracts, rookie contracts, and deals, and got them locked up for a long time. I mean that's really rare here. So I gave him the A minus. I went ahead and gave him an A.
Yeah, I mean, very, very similar for the next two positions, and that's kind of what I did to kind of balance some of these grades out and be a little bit more precise as we move forward into our third division. Is if I felt like I was always teetering, I would move one up and one down just to make sure that they were kind of leveling out. We didn't even talk about that, but it just seemed like the right thing to do. He was definitely on the borderline of an A for me, but I wound up giving him a B for this one. Just because it's somewhat unproven. I mean, I drafted Caleb Johnson everywhere. I think he's going to have a very, very solid year and a strong career. I do like Trey Benson as well, but I don't think he's there yet, and he still kind of has to prove something. And who knows how long Connor's going to last? But I think he could have definitely 120 points this year and double his production from last year. And then Jaden Blue is a great number 3 with tremendous upside. If even if he's a reliable third down back and they're moving him all over the field, and he's catching a ton of passes, so he just doesn't have quite a star yet. So that's kind of where I was. Okay, we have to prove it a little bit with these guys, but I think most of the league would love to have his running back room.
Yeah, and I'm usually very big on having to have star power to get an A, Corey. But we've also seen like do you have $500 dedicated to the running back position, and when you're sitting
Right.
there at 125 with a nice looking stable, I mean it's pretty juicy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so wide receiver, I gave him a B plus, and again, same thing. I'm like, he's fringe. If I'm going to go one, I'm going to go the other. I do think Jacoby Myers will have a very good season this year. I'm a big believer in him. I'm not a big Tet guy, but the value of him is obviously tremendous. And if he does become the guy, he will be the guy. Rasheed Rice, I mean, let's see where that goes. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. It could be amazing. Could be, not as quick of a recovery as people think. But I do like Luke McCaffrey, in a returner role with some potential. And then Keandre Lambert-Smith has been really good. He was good in that
Oh,
preseason game, but I know he was really good in camps, all the camps leading up to that. So that's like that's a nice, some nice flyers. He's got a couple guys on his taxi squad too. I do like Ricky White. If he makes that team, he
yep.
could end up being a returner type also, similar to McCaffrey. So I feel like I cheated him a little by not giving him an A here, but like I said, I was just kind of meeting in the middle between these two, and so I have him as a B plus here.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that a little bit. I gave him an A. I didn't punish him for, I think, Rasheed Rice is a top 15 wide receiver, like I said. I'm not too worried about the 6 games he's going to be out or 4 or whatever. He's gonna get hit this year. But I think he's proven that he can be a legit number one wide receiver on a team, especially on Kansas City. Kobe Myers, as we talked about, super expensive, a tough contract. I think he is probably the number 2 guy on the team this year next to Brock Bowers. And you got to spend money at wide receiver to have 3 guys. So he had, 2 guys that I think anybody would really like to have as a 1-2. And then when you have a rookie like Tet, I think that can be an absolute, dominant player, at least as a number 1 on his team. And $68 contract, top 2 draft pick. I think, I mean, those are strong 3. And then you already mentioned Lambert-Smith, who's been getting talked about in camp. I've heard that he's been as explosive as anybody in Los Angeles, but I don't think the Keenan Allen thing helps him this year too much. And who knows where he can end up. But for a late 3rd round draft pick, I think that's a pretty good hit already. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's kind of a journeyman, but he's not. No, he's not trash. And Luke McCaffrey, the same thing. You're out with Debo. You don't know what's going to happen with their number 1. What's his name? Can't think of it.
McLaurin, yeah,
You know,
that's true. He could
yeah,
find himself
McLaurin.
in a
His
very good role
so
if
I
that
mean,
doesn't work out.
in a strong offense and younger receiver, he's going to work hard. He's a freaking McCaffrey. I think those are 5 guys right there with, and I kind of like the Dante Pettis signing. I mean, he's backed up kind of Donovan Peoples-Jones and Pettis on, $36. So if one of those guys can even get a role and score 50, 60 points, like he's got some depth. And then you even mentioned the taxi squad with Ricky White. I mean, he might not make the squad this year, but I think those are 2 good selections at 326 and 330 for Flyer wide receivers that maybe could carve out a role next year and the year after. So I gave him an A.
Yeah, well deserved. I mean, like even now that we're going through it again, I just feel like maybe I shortchanged him a little there. But it is what it is. The tight end room. I mean, I didn't give it an A plus because we still need to see Elijah Arroyo, but Elijah Arroyo and Dalton Kincaid were both in my top 15. So
Right.
that is about as good of a room as I think you're going to want to get. He's got Kincaid locked down long term. He's got Arroyo for $23 contract. Jelani Woods is still kind of like a wait and see guy. Maybe needs another team. But when you have 2 guys that if Arroyo works out, you're always happy starting one of them. And if you're in a pinch, you can start them both. And I think it's something to be said about this roster that he has the ability to play the max of the players at each position, if
Yep.
it goes well, and that's very strong, right? Like that really gets you through buys when you're able to, okay, I'll start two tight ends because I got two wide receivers on buy, et cetera, et cetera. So like I think his offense is going to be really tough to deal with. And looking at it, maybe I should have gave him three A's and one B instead of the 2-2. But I like that tight end room a lot.
Yeah, I mean, no argument here. It's an A. I mean, I haven't been doing the pluses and minuses, but he's got two top 15, 16, 17 guys, and I think Kincaid, like I said, is going to have a much better year than putting up 100 points this year. So I think anybody would love to have this young, core. He's got tradable assets. If one of the guy even has a semi-productive year and scores 150 points, or he can start two of them, like you said, when someone's on bye. So that's about as strong as a tight end room as you can have. So that's an A all day for me.
Awesome. All right. So at D tackle, I have a B. And that is kind of contingent that Derek Brown comes back to form that he was previously. I think he's still like slowly coming. I don't even know if he's practicing yet. But Derek Brown was very good 2 years ago, and if he can come back and be like that 150-point guy, then I would feel, very comfortable in this room. Consider that be a stud with, Tarts probably again another 70-yard, 70, 80-point guy. I don't know if Darius Robinson is getting his chances yet, but he might. So, the depth's not totally there. But if Derek Brown can come to form, then it's that's the plug and play, and he's happy and has a buy filler.
Yeah, I was a little bit harder on him at D tackle. We've talked about this and why I like to see two studs or at least two guys that are to score, around that 100 to 130 points, on cheaper contracts. But like you said, Derek Brown, I think his pedigree was there. I think I originally drafted him his rookie season, like the fourth round. So I was, I went and got him pretty early. One of my first years in the league, just because I thought he was a safe bet and he was a stud when he was coming out of college. So, I mean, that could easily turn this into a B for me. A little bit of lack of depth and still kind of an approve it year with his defensive tackles. So I just put him on par with a C.
That's fair. I had him as a B minus actually. I just rechecked that. So I was fringe as well, but I kind of think Derek Brown is expected to come back and be better there. So for the DN's not so lucky. I did kind of the comparison thing as well and gave him a C plus for his defensive ends. I just I don't there's not a I like Malcolm Kuntz a lot. I've even come on record and
Yeah,
said
you mentioned
I
that.
really
Yeah.
think he's going to be great, but like that's a lot of projection, right? And so Michael Hoyt got suspended, and he doesn't have a lot of depth after that. So I think Malcolm Kuntz better be good, especially at $140 for 2 more years. So he kind of needs that bounce back as bad as anyone, So no one's hoping I'm more right than Fleece is. But
Right.
it's just even if he's great at that price point, I think the rest he's gonna have a tough time starting two guys, and I don't know where his third one for buy fillers is. It maybe one of these guys can step up, but it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, we're in line there, and just no star power. I need two studs to move into the A range with depth and decent contracts. Malcolm Kuntz, like you mentioned, that's a 140-point gamble. Even if he is pretty good, is he going to be in that stud category? And I don't think he has another one. So I gave him a C, but it's a strong C with a little bit of upside to maybe take him to a C plus, depending on how Kuntz does and if Jermaine Johnson can rebound. I saw the Hoyt suspension. I don't know how many games that is, but
I think it's four.
he would have been higher if there wasn't an S on his roster there. I don't know for sure how many games he was suspended.
Yeah, I mean it could be just one D end 4-game run, as far as points are concerned. For linebacker, I went back and forth, same thing with a B minus and a C plus here, but I talked myself into the C plus, and here's why. Like, I really think Carson Schwarzenegger as an asset is awesome. I think he's definitely starting this year. Because they Hicks retired, JOK is not even healthy. So like that asset alone should put him on a B, especially when he has Alex Anzalone. But Alex Anzalone has two things that I'm really nervous about this year. One, Jack Campbell confirmed has the green dot, which means Alex Anzalone is either his backup or he's going to be one of the rotations at the other positions, which I don't know what that looks like. So he could be a 60% type of linebacker. He's also been super disgruntled about not getting paid, and I just think they're going to move on from him. He may end up having a good team next year, but I'm worried that they're going to kind of phase him out this year. And I could be wrong about that, but if he has another 100-point year, like that's just going to be that's not what you want for a guy like that, especially when, his other three are like four stringers, So it's like, if you only got two, and I know this because I'm kind of in the boat, like you really want to make sure they're putting up points. So I gave him a C plus there.
Yeah, I mean, I gave him a C. At the linebacker position, I need to see studs to be above average. I don't think he has a legit stud in this roster yet. Schlesinger obviously kind of has the opportunity. He drafted him really high, which I think was super smart. Arguably the best linebacker in the class. Again, there's not enough guys. I need to see three guys that I know are going to score in that 120 to 150 and then at least one guy that I think can have a 200-point range season to look in that A category. Anzalone just doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to play into his 34, 35-year-old season, and I think he's fit well within Dan Campbell and being aggro aggressive. But I have the sense that he's going to start breaking down a little bit too, and he's got one more year on his contract after this year. He's rather expensive. And like you said, I just seeing him as a kind of declining asset. And then the rest of the guys are just kind of jags, if you ask me. So just an average room with a little bit of upside because he has Schlesinger, but there's not really any depth on the taxi squad. He doesn't really have any younger guys that he got for cheap that are actually going to be playing. So just a solid C.
Yeah, it's fair. I gave him a B for his cornerback room, and specifically, I think Raheem Still's going to be very good this year. I think the reports are that he's been like a real guy for them there, and so he might qualify as a stud by the end, but he's still a solid 120 to 150 point type of guy. And then he's got four guys who are all either fighting for a position or like kind of the next man up. And cornerback gets hurt a lot, so he doesn't have two sure starters, which is usually what I need to see for a B. But like having four guys who are next man up, it just feels like you could end up with five starters like week 4. So I didn't want to ding him too much for that because I think all five of those guys are in good spots, and so I gave him a B.
Yeah, I gave him a B as well. We're actually a lot in sync on this. I like the fact that he hasn't spent a ton of money at quarterback, but he has, guys that have scored points, and he has one legitimate dude that's really cheap. Didn't have to go and spend any money in the auction this year on a cornerback. And I just think having one guy that can score you 6-7 points a game and two other guys or one other guy, because I only really want to start two cornerbacks if necessary, especially if I have a pretty strong safety room. But yeah, I think I like the total investment at cornerback and guys that have already produced and are still going to have roster spots more than likely. Yeah, solid B.
Cool. I gave him a D for his safety room, man. I mean, he has 0 studs, 0 starters, and that's a tough spot to be in. He has 5 guys. They are all in play to be, cut or fourth, some maybe the third guy or a direct backup. But like, man, going into a season like that, you have to get so lucky over the summer to be able to not be taking these zeros, but he might be taking 2 zeros at safety, and that's a really tough spot to be in. Two safety taking 2 zeros at any position, especially like safety, where you can get 12 to 14 points a game if you have some good ones. Like, it's really leaving a lot on the table for me, so I give him a D.
Yeah, this was one of those kind of, the last grade I gave him a B. Probably was leaning a little bit lower to that, down to a C. But I think I even bumped it up when I was like, I can't give him a D in this room. Sign was a first round draft pick. I still think there's potential there. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I liked Rodney Thomas. I was glad to get him. I think he's a Yale guy, and he didn't play a ton, but he's going to have a special teams role. No studs, like a lot of gamble. So it wasn't a complete D just because he hasn't spent a ton of money on safety, and but it's a borderline D in that room.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, like, there's some injuries that can happen, but unlike his cornerback room, where, like, in a cornerback room, if a guy gets hurt over 2 or 3 spots, the next guy up probably plays, right? As long they just kind of move it around a little. But safety's a little different, so he could get lucky and the exact positions could get hurt, but again, Lewis Seen, sorry, dude. That's the biggest bust in Vikings history, man. That guy's trash.
Yeah, I think I saw that name and just thought maybe he was better. And
he was
he
was Georgia first round, but then he broke his leg and then he never
got back. Well, Fleece, I mean, with Alders, I mean, he's got a super, super solid offense. And I think that's what's so interesting about team builds is, like, you got to score points at all the positions in order to compete. But a 3.71 score for me is a solid team. Like, this division is actually a pretty strong division from top to bottom. I much stronger than the division overall last week that we compared. So, I mean, Fleece can win some games just from his offense. And so, I mean, just because his grade's a little bit lower in some of the defense positions, I think he's going to have somewhat of a competitive year. A lot of things can change real quick, and he's got some pieces he can move around too to kind of fill some holes as he goes. So, sure. As much as we love his tight end room, I would love to see him have a one stud linebacker that's young to pair with Schlesinger for many years to come too. So there's just moves he can make. He's pretty deep. He's pretty deep at wide receiver as well. So he can go get some guys that can fill in holes and move some things around. He's pretty active owner too.
Fleece might be solid spot. Fleece might be a year away from being a really, really good team though, right? Like, because just to your point, like, his rooms are all very good on offense. And they're good young contracts. They're going to be around. These aren't transition tag guys that you're going to lose next year. I mean, Jacoby Myers was cheap. You can tag him if he works out. I just think, Well,
he's already tagged, so he's $212. So he's locked in on that one. But
yeah, no, I know, but that was signed this year. We thought that was, right. I thought that was a good price in the auction for him.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Basically what I mean is, like, I feel like he's going to basically have the ability to keep that entire offense next year. So if you can keep that entire offense, you get a draft and some free agency, make a couple hits. Next year he could be a real contender. This year, I don't know. The defense has to get super lucky, and I have him at 3.57, which we'll get to the position rank of where everyone is in this division later, but I felt like felt dirty to even have him that low because of that offense being that good. But hey, man, if you let the defense lie and die, it's really difficult. And, like, again, one injury away from a D end or a linebacker spot, just taking massive zeros.
Well, at least his grade average is higher than his college GPA, Fleece. So you're doing good, buddy.
Well done, Fleece. All right.
Veto is up next. I mean, Vito's done a really good job building this team. I mean, he's had a couple rough years, but he's in a real strong position this year. I mean, yeah. So I'll kick it off at quarterback for him. I gave him an A with Hurts. Even it's a 2-year contract. We've talked about this already. Like, I mean, if Hurts is the man for a couple more years, I have no problem franchising tag that quarterback and keeping him. And if he's scoring 500 points a year, I think that's an A all day. He's a top 5, 6 quarterback in the league. I think that's an A for me. Not much to talk about.
Yeah, it's fine. I gave it a B plus. Again, like I have this thing where this is why I liked having the 1x multiplier here, is just because I want to take the depth of what it is. You know, it's not just for this year. It's like I need to look at that contract. It's like 2 years, cool. Jalen Hurts, that's great. $57, fair, right? But it's not like blown away on the price, blown away on the contract. Again, like that's a holdout nightmare waiting to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way last year when I put Van Ginkel and Grenard everywhere on 2 or 3 year deals, and then just sitting there with holdouts on cheap guys, and it really throws a wrench in your gears. So we'll see. We'll see where that actually even ends up. We can look at it. I gotta look at Candy's sheet and see if any of this even matters, because like I don't know what the most expensive quarterbacks even are. Like I said, it just feels like the position wasn't aggressively sufficiently bid on for years.
But you can always trade off a quarterback to a guy and then go get a $1 auction too. Like if he wanted to move Hurts for someone would gladly take Hurts in his contract, take those 450 to 510 points to a contender, and he can go get a $1 guy in the auction. So yeah. I just don't look at it the same way you do. But
no, that's fine.
If you're
I think quarterback's probably the one position we've been very different on. If you like the guy, you give an A. Like period. You don't
if
care
he's a
about
stud,
the contract,
and
top
I think, 5, 6 guy.
Well, I think the price per dollar too. It's like, and the difference gap. Like your argument's fair. I just kind of like I don't know. I've always been, I'm probably experiencing. Well, no, and that's not true. I've had $1 quarterbacks that didn't work out or got holdouts by the time they did. It's a tricky position.
I guess where I'm at is if I have a $57 quarterback or a $1 quarterback, that's $56 that I can go into the auction and pay for a third string linebacker. So what would you rather have, the extra 150 almost guaranteed points, or would you like to take a flyer on or overpay for a $100 safety? I just it really depends on your team build and where you're at. I think like he's a competitive team this year, has every chance to make the playoffs. So I have no issue, and so that's where I just don't think it's all that. You can always go out and get a $1 quarterback in the auction that maybe a rookie incoming or just a vet signing or something like that. So I just don't worry too much about that position.
I think Corey, I'm going to continue to be consistent because I've done that thus far, but I think like in the future I'll probably take your position. That it just the points matter more than the money in these cases.
Yeah.
And but if I start doing it differently in your division or the next division that we do.
No, I get it. Yeah.
So that's why we
do the show, man.
This probably should be an A, and I'll keep that in mind for the future. Go ahead. What do you got from running back?
So running back, I gave him a strong A. I mean, we talked about Harvey. Everything I hear about him in camp is that he's explosive, and Sean Payton loves him, and I know that's it could either happen or not. We may be not extremely high on where he was drafted, but I think he was smart to go get what could be a stud running back that could play 5-6 years, get a lot of touches, a little high value touches. I think that's a great number 2-1 on his team. Marshawn Lloyd, I think, still has a legitimate chance as kind of the banger behind their stud, who I have ranked 7 overall. That I can't come up with names today. What is wrong with me? I mean, it's probably because I'm not drinking, which I'm not doing for a long period of time. So that's for everybody to be aware of. I'm starting the 75 days strong on Monday and already quit the drinking part of it. I don't know if you've ever heard about that, but it'll be tough. But I'm looking forward to it. I'll be clear-headed as shit for the next 3 months. So yeah, I mean, Woody Marks, another rookie. I think he was smart to go get him. Like he has every chance to be the number two. We don't know what's going on with Mixon, and freaking Chubb is old as hell. So I think that's a very, very strong value pick at 217. And then Tajay Spears is a 1-2 punch, and like I was very high on Tajay coming out. Like he was, there was concerns about his longevity because of both of his knees, but he has three guys at two guys at least that can score 130 to 150 points that are young. He has Marks and then he has Lloyd, so I think that's an A all day. I think a lot of people would be lucky to have a running back room like that.
Yeah, I gave it a B because I'm not as optimistic as you are on what guys could be versus what they are. Now, RJ Harvey, I was like super down on, and I would be a liar if I told you that Camp News didn't change my mind. He clearly has the team talking about him, the coaches like him. There's a lot of hype around him. Uh, the official depth chart that they put out where he was fifth was one of the funniest troll things I've ever
Yeah, that's
seen
hilarious.
in my life.
Add another chip to that guy's shoulder.
Well, and you know what? Maybe that's the play. Or maybe, maybe they're, I don't know, maybe it's a seniority thing and just how they do it. Maybe it means zero. Maybe it's, hey, step it up a little. Like, I honestly don't know, but I do believe he's, if at best, a 1A, 1B with Dobbins. I don't think he's just going to get a 3-down workload because, like, I don't think Peyton would even want that. He normally likes two guys if he likes two guys and if they complement each other. So if that works out, great. But, like, again, it's unknown. Marshawn Lloyd is, like, been behind Wilson, but I think his talent's gotta be there. I mean, like, it's again, like we hope he can do it, and he was just hurt, but we haven't seen that yet. Woody Marks, yeah, I mean he's a prospect. He's third on the depth chart. I think he might be fourth, but I think he's been good enough in camp to be third. And then the Mexican stuff is weird, so I feel you on that. And then Tajay Spears, like I think he's gonna be really good this year. Like, I think him and Pollard are going to run a lot. I think they're going to, I don't think they're going to try and make Cam Ward do too much. But
I think their offense is going to be better too.
Yeah, but again, like, for me to give an A, like, I need like two sure starters that are good with some depth. And I don't know if it's there yet. It can be an A room midway through the season, but I'm not going to crown it there yet. So I have them at B.
This is one of those ones that was I graded down on the wide receiver a little bit because of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
His running back room could either be stellar in 3 years, and that's what we're looking at kind of here, or it could be just a solid B with a little bit of depth. I think he has some guys that he can trade off to if they even semi hit because it's just such a valuable position.
Yeah.
The four guys I think are pretty strong, even
All
though,
good
like you said, he
prices,
doesn't
too.
have a complete stud yet. But Harvey is trending in that direction, and he spent a lot of draft capital on him, so he needs them to hit, right? So we'll see. So I dropped his wide receiver from an A to a B originally. It was tough to do, but here's why. Lad McConkey, absolute stud. I think he is going to have regression this year. I don't think the Keenan Allen signing helps him. They also brought in other guys that I think kind of reduces the workload. He's going to be good, but I think that's going to be good for his overall career. And then he has, Dante Thornton, who could be a guy who's getting a lot of talk in training camp, but I'm just not sold on that yet. I think it's a different situation as the season goes, and he's still in a prove it kind of situation for me. Cedric Tillman, I'm just not as high on as everybody else seems to be. He was a part of that trade. I just couldn't understand it. Is he a number 2 or 3 on his team? Probably. Will he have a better year than 80? Yeah, depending on quarterback play. But there's so much uncertainty in Cleveland. I don't see that as another A asset or a B plus asset. I just see it as kind of okay. Well, we'll see. And then Leggett, I mean, he had a good year last year. I think some of that's going to reduce with Tep being there, but he's a good, solid number three wide receiver. So he doesn't have two A wide receivers on his team yet, but and he doesn't have a ton of depth. So he needs those four guys to produce this year. Because I don't think he has a lot of extra capital that he can move people around. And if you can start five wide receivers, I think you need some guys that score 120 points, that are just returners or on cheap contracts that are third down slot guys that score points. So I'm okay with giving him a B, even though I love the deal he made for Ladd, obviously. But I just don't see it as a powerhouse wide receiver room.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree and disagree with you in a weird way. Like I
Yeah.
gave him a B plus, so I wouldn't give him to an A for the depth stuff you're talking about. I can't talk about the uncertainty and provenness that I did on the previous room, and then try and talk some big game. I do think Lad McConkey is interesting to have Keenan Allen, even if he goes down a little bit this year. I think Keenan Allen can teach him a lot because they're both pure route runners, and Keenan Allen's one of the best route runners ever. And like, I think there's going to be some good rub off if Keenan Allen, plays the whole year with him. So
Yeah.
I'm not super down on him, especially not long term. But for this year,
Oh no, not long
it
term at
could
all.
be.
Not long term at all. I just don't see him having a 250-point year this year. That's all.
I think he still could get close. I personally, but run first team. Let's see. I mean, Keenan Allen get 13 catches a game again. That's all over. Deontay Thornton, I am buying his camp hype. I've seen a lot of film, and a lot of players are really sold on him. So like on the draft, I was really down on him taking him that high. Remember, I was like, we liked the other. Was that Beck? Jeff Beck? No, so not Jeff Beck.
Yeah, Beck is also there.
Yeah, Beck. And it sounds like Beck might be some Jacoby Myers insurance, and it sounds like Deontay Thornton is on listed as a starter on their current depth chart. So like that can't be overlooked. Like you don't put a guy as a starter unless they're trying to boost his confidence or something. And the thing is, he's over.
Yeah.
I saw something that was like over 6'4" and under 4'4" 40s, or maybe till 4'3" 40s. There's only been like two other guys who did that in the NFL. Whatever it was like Mike Evans and AJ Brown or something. I can't remember what it was. Basically two ridiculous players comped, and he's made crazy catches, like really difficult catches. So if he has a big catch radius and he's like huge, and he plays like DK Metcalf, I think was the guy. I think it was DK Metcalf and Mike Evans. So if he is like DK Metcalf, like Geno Smith is going to give him a DK Metcalf like feed. Like he could be really good this year. Anyways, I don't want to tangent too much on that, but that's why I had him at a B plus for me personally. Leggett, I don't think he's going to take a step further. I actually think they're getting more talented there, and it's kind of cramming up what he can be. But he could still be amazing. Cedric Tillman is the number 2 wide receiver, but like you, I'm not buying it, and I'm not buying their room, and we'll see. But I think those 4 guys are very solid, for a room that you want. It was I was close to
I guess
him an A.
I mean
gave him a B
overall, and
plus.
I'm not criticizing what he's done here. He needed to fill out his linebacker room in the auction. He has some defensive ends, blah blah blah. He's used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 first rounders between his running back, tight end, and his wide receiver room. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in his team. I would like to have seen one of these late kind of prove it wide receivers that could either be the third guy on the team or, we'll see, or have a little bit of upside and went and got a stud defensive end or a stud linebacker with 127 one of those years, right? So I think that's probably where I get a lot more critical with a vet owner, is just kind of seeing how the team's unfolding. He's got so much wrapped up into his offense. If some of these don't pan out over the next year, and he's still got to spend to get defensive end in the auction or linebackers in the auction, he's going to have trouble keeping consistency up for the next 3 years as a playoff contender. So right now it looks really, really good on paper. A lot of draft capital, but it's still a little bit of a prove it room in both the running back and wide receiver room. So that's where the A and B come from. And then for tight end, I have an A room. If you have a top 3 tight end or top 4 tight end, I'm giving you an A. I don't really care who your backup is. You can always get a backup guy that's only going to play one game, for you, unless there's an injury. So Sam Laporta gets him an automatic A for me.
Sorry, I got a puppy in the background. Yeah. So I gave him a B plus again, and it's Sam Laporta. He's the top guy for us. I don't think Charlie Kohler is going to play at all. So he's got no depth. He's got no second guy to play, so I had to give him one.
That's fair. All right. While Ben takes care of his dog situation, which is not a big deal. I listen to a lot of podcasts that dogs make an appearance. I gave him an A at defensive tackle. He's got 2 guys that I think are pretty good. He spent a decent amount of money. I think, why did I give him an A? I can't remember. Yeah, I think that should be a B. I don't know what I was thinking here. I might have got confused a little bit. Solid room, got 2 guys that scored in the 100-point range, decent contracts, and then Autry, an older vet, to fill in some weeks. But I think that's probably more like a B for me, so I'm going to change that one.
Yeah, I have him as a B plus, and I think Kinlaw will be good, and I think Osa. Ojezua, I can't remember how he's saying that. I think he could be potentially a breakout candidate. So he already had a very good year. They paid him a lot of money. So he's got potential to be very good. I think Nico Autry's still not practicing, I think, from his injury last year, but he was very good the year before. So if he can come back to some sort of form, he probably is going to get a lot of run on that defense. So, for me, it was he's borderline, got some star power. It's just good depth. So it's not an A, but it's a B plus.
All right. I gave him an A at defensive end, which was kind of between the linebacker room and this one. It balanced out a little bit for me. So I gave him an A just because of Max Crosby and his ability just to change any game and dominate. He can franchise tag him. He's an absolute stud. I like Nwasu. I think he's going to have a better year this year, and DJ Wadham's pretty solid as well. He can start 3 guys or 2 guys with pretty decent confidence at all times. So I gave him an A here, but that reflects down in his linebacker room.
Yeah, it's funny. I probably did the opposite, so I gave him a B plus again. I think I gave Veto the record of B pluses, which probably is unfair. Somewhere we got to get the A's, right? But Max Crosby almost is like a shoo-in to get you an A. DJ Wanham is going to be a good start of a starter, but they did draft 2 DNs to eventually take over. That might not matter this year. DJ Wanham might start the whole year. He's very average. So is Patrick Jones, who is the other starter that I have. So I know I've been watching that pretty closely. Those rookies aren't going to start this year unless it happens way later. They might be developmental, so that could stay. I think Nwosu gets cut. I think he's in such a deep room. I think he's in such a deep room that if he plays, I don't know where they're going to play him. I could be wrong. Maybe they just play him like every 145 to 50 snaps, and it's just a weird room. But I look at that coming off of injury, didn't look good last year. I haven't heard him looking good in camp this year. wouldn't be surprised if he got cut. So like that's where I kind of get nervous. Maybe he's a maybe, could be good, maybe could be a rotation guy, maybe could get cut. So I get a no. So that's why I landed on a B plus.
That's fair. You have a lot more insight into some of these guys that I don't roster very often, and I'm just kind of based off of name recognition a little bit when I'm looking at some of these other teams, and I'm looking at contracts and depth charts. But so that's fair. I defensive side of ball when we're looking at this. So kudos to you for having all that information inside your brain. On the linebacker room, I mean, three words for you: old, old, and old. And he's just going to be in this situation every year, which is fine because he can always go spend. But like I talked about, I think there's a lack of youth. Who knows what's going to happen here with some of these guys as they kind of fade out. I mean, it looks pretty strong, and I think he had to be, very, very aggressive in the auction to go get guys to fill these gaps. But then you look at what's going to happen moving forward, and I just don't see where he's going to continue to do this and keep his, as other players that he has to pay get more expensive, he's going to lose a little bit of capital, and he's going to have to invest in some younger players or hit a little bit with cheaper players in the auction to make this an A room. So I gave him a B.
Yeah, I gave him an A, and I understand what you're saying, but the fact of the matter is, he put all those guys on 1 year contracts. He's going to get $500 back at the end of the year, and if any of these guys work out, like Troy Reader, and he wants to transition tag, he can. We kind of agreed that, like, in retrospect, the prices weren't bad; they were more than fair. For me, if Troy Reader's going to start, and then Landon Roberts is starting, and then Matt Milano is looking like he's definitely starting kind of back in camp. I know he has some like durability issues, but then Levante David's going to beast, and then even Diabate is starting as well because of all the deployments. So he's got too many starters for me not to give him an A. And I probably would have vaulted an A plus if this was all cheap contracts. But to your point, there's like an incredible amount of money in this position, and he could have done without one of them. But he might not have expected to win them all. You know what I mean? So he's going to be able to trade one of them to some needy team. So like he's got moves to make when you got. An embarrassment rich as a linebacker is a very good thing. Like he could even trade one of these guys away and probably still have an A minus for me. Like I think it's that. I get it's old and I worry about the future, but again, when you're gonna clear $500 worth of cap, you're probably gonna be able to, run it back again if this is the strategy.
Yeah, that's fair. I think between the defensive end room and the linebacker room, it's a solid B plus, regardless of how you look at it. So. Like I said, he had to do this. He had to fill those gaps in the auction, and we'll see what he does next year. But I think it makes him a very competitive team with how he stacks up everywhere else. So at cornerback, I gave him a B as well. Depth, cheaper contracts. Guys that he can, play. He has several of them. I don't know where they all are on the depth charts, but I like Ugo Amadi as a number one. And then he's just got a plethora of other guys that he can plug and play to get a few extra points in that second spot. So I gave him a B.
Yeah, same for me. It's like same on the last roster. It's like you have one stud you can rely on. None of these other guys, I think, out the gate are starting, but like they're all in competition. They're going to be in depth roles. I think, man, like some of these guys actually with some injuries might be very close to starting already. So it was one of those things when you have a bunch of guys with the next man up, it's hard to dock up too much for it. So I gave him a B.
Yeah, and then the last room is the C to kind of B range. I ended up landing on a B because I was just, I like the depth at the spot. He's got guys that can score points. It's not a super strong room, but I think Killebrew, even in Pittsburgh, like he's going to have more than 15 points this year. He's in line to start. Jordan Battles, I think going to have a better year, and so I just like the depth. He's not overspended on the position. and he's got enough guys that can, if there's injuries or bye weeks, that he can kind of plug and play and get some points out of them.
Yeah, I gave him a C. I mean, Jordan Battle has potential to be like, the next level. He's not there yet, but he's looked good. He grades well. I think if the Steelers are starting Miles Kilbrew, they're in deep shit. And I think that's not gonna.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's not gonna hold by the end. I think your boy.
Well, I'm
I think your boy
invested in
Castro's
Castro,
better
so I'm
than
hoping
him.
it doesn't happen.
I just
Yeah.
wonder. I just wonder if they're gonna try and run like Ramsey up. Like I don't know what they're gonna do. We'll see. But you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, if he does start, then it's hard to have this at a C. I just don't think that holds. And all these guys are kind of their next man up, and some of them might get cut. We just don't really know. So I had him at a C there.
All right, I gave Veto a 4.85. I did move one position down, so I think originally it was at a 5. So really strong team. I think he's got some work to do as far as where he pans out with some of these, even on the offense and how those guys work out this year. But strong team, good job on a rebuild, and going all in to compete this year in the Super Pot.
I promise I don't hate our commissioner, but I only have he's a 4 flat for me because I kept giving him B pluses across the board. He had 2, 4.
Oh, it can
B
change
pluses.
quick. It can change quick.
Very much so, but it's like I kept going through the exercise to see if I could convince myself to go higher in some of these spots, and I just couldn't do it. So he averages at a 4 flat for me. Still pretty good for this division.
A lot of variability,
but
a lot of variability.
Yeah.
All right, you're up first on Big Beefy Brad.
All right, Big Beefy Brad. We're gonna have to hot step this so we don't make it 3 hours again. I do like the pace we're going, so we don't have to over. But Big Beefy Brad, I gave him a B for his quarterback. Shocker, because I just basically give everyone a B. And it's same.
I gave him a C.
You gave him a C. That's
yeah.
I had a kind of a rule that I couldn't give C's to $1 quarterbacks. However, that being said, he is he's past his holdout phases. I don't see him being a holdout this year. So we'll see. Like it's tough for me if you're paying $1. But I don't like their situation at all. So I think your C is.
I don't know if he has a quarterback on that roster that'll start for any other team other than the Browns. So that's why it's just, and then it just seems like they're trending in the wrong direction. I mean, it could change really quickly if Arch Manning is their quarterback in a year or two. That's a whole different ballgame, right? And he's from, that New Orleans landing spot would be pretty sweet for him.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean,
I kind of had that in the back of my head that like it might get better. But I think I have graders remorse. I probably should have gave him a C, but I'm going to leave it with a B.
Running back, I gave him a C as well. I'm sorry, you were supposed to go first.
Yeah, that's okay.
You can go first
I didn't mean to mess up our order. That was my fault. I hesitated. I gave him a C as well. At the running back position, C plus. I snuck in a little C plus there. Ty Chandler
he just doesn't have a starter.
He doesn't have starters. He has backups and guys who've looked good but a lot of them are third string, and it's you need a lot of luck. Some guys could return kicks. Ty Chandler makes our team. He'll return kicks. Craig Reynolds might return kicks. Manuel Wilson, if he gets healthy, could have a role. But I'm with you. It's tough.
Keeping with that same theme, this is probably more like a C plus room because he has a bunch of C plus guys on this roster. I love Turpin as a third wide receiver, but when he's your number one wide receiver, more than likely, DeMarcus Robinson could be. He just doesn't have a guy, and so he's got depth, which I really do like. He's not overexpended on the position. Marquise Brown, what is he this year? I like Naomi Brown again, like at $47. I think that's a valuable asset. David Bell, okay. Michael Wilson, I think I think he is kind of what he is. I don't see him ever being even a number two in the league. George and I completely disagreed on him, but he has had a better career than Justin Ross, so I lost that one completely. But other than that, it's just a bunch of kind of C plus guys that I just don't see a real valuable number one asset in it. So that's why I gave him an overall C.
I gave him a C plus, and you're right. He has C plus guys. That's very funny. Demarcus Robinson might have a decent role early, before everyone gets healthy. But like again, like there's no stud power, and there's no real certainty with role. So you're just gonna, Diami Brown's been playing very well also. So we'll see, man. I mean, not much to say. It's like awesome depth, but you know, what are you going to get out of that position at a position where maybe your opponent's getting double or triple?
Yep. For tight end, I gave him a B. I like Fryermuth. I think that's, he's a very startable tight end. I wish they would have got Jonnu Smith because that, would have definitely raised the grade overall on him. But when you compare that to 32 other teams in the league, it's slightly above average for me. So it's it's better than a C room, just because of that. And then he's got a couple other guys that are on squads, that you can fill in on a bye week. But he can start Fryermuth every week and score more points than half the league, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I gave him a B minus, but it's like it feels like this is an average room that most people would be happy with. It probably would have been a B plus if John Ju Smith wasn't there, so it's a B either way for me.
I gave him an A at the defensive tackle position because he has what I would want in a D tackle room. He has a stud that scores a shit ton of points, even though he's older. I mean, as long as he's playing, he can transition tag him, and then he has Tyleek Williams on his taxi squad. So he has a young replacement that he can activate. I wouldn't keep him on that taxi squad for too long, personally, but. That's why I like A rooms. You have one guy that you can play every game as long as he's healthy, and then you have another guy that's kind of waiting in the wings. And if he activates him, he can play him at a defense, instead of a defensive end in bye week. So I gave him an A at defensive tackle.
Yeah, I have an A minus, and the same thing with the depth. I mean, I'd like to assume that he would promote his $1 D tackle, but you never know. We'll see. I wouldn't want to lose that guy either. I think he's been getting first team reps, so.
Well,
Jeffrey
I did
Simmons.
call the Colston Leveland. I did call the Colston Leveland activation,
Yes, you
and
did.
that was just a travesty.
Yeah.
When I say that, I'm saying it. So if you listen to the pod, those are one of the perks.
I think Jeffrey Simmons is going to
Um,
get 200 points this year.
yep, and that's super valuable. Might be a trade asset too at $35 to someone that needs those points because I don't think Beefy's a playoff team this year. But the tight end or defensive end room, I gave him a B, mostly because of Brian Burns. I don't see another guy on there that's a stud, but because he has Burns, I'm okay with giving him a B there.
Yeah, I got it. A B plus. I think I even gave him because Nick Scorton is I think he's gonna rotate as the third guy at worst most of the season. So he should keep enough pace to have like 1.5 guys, and some of these guys can fill in. So yeah, I'm with you. The B room, but Brian Burns is nice.
I gave him a B in his linebacker room. Probably more like a B plus, depending on how Tavai works out in New England. I don't mind Nefi Sewell. I don't know what's going on with Malcolm Rodriguez, but he's super cheap. He's got a bunch of guys that are just kind of cheap that might see the field, might not. Bobby Wagner, obviously, this year is viable, but on Brad's team, I just, these are kind of some of the positional things that I'd like to see him invest in, trading those type of guys away and getting some extra draft capital, which he has a lot of, by the way. So Brad's definitely strategically figuring out how to put his team together. But I like the depth at linebacker. Just again, I don't know if he has long-term studs at the position, but he has, some pieces that I think he can play with.
Yeah, I gave him a C plus because I just think the Bobby Wagner contract is all he has a lot of certainty. Tavai, as far as I've seen, is not going to be a starter. He
No.
might be a part-time guy. He's definitely next man up, so that's good. Like he would get a 3 down role if somebody got hurt, but like just not going to give that much credit because he was better last year. Rodriguez, I mean, he's hurt again. Like I don't know, man. I don't know if he's going to get a lot of run. And then Troy Dye's a good at the same time. Like if somebody gets hurt, he might get some run. Barrett Carter I liked, but he hasn't been good enough in camp to go grab a job there. So I just think it's kind of one starter and like a lot of hope. So that's a C plus for me.
These next two, I kind of did a little bit of a balancing act. I gave him a B in the cornerback room and a C in the safety room, probably a C plus average out. Deron Bland, I think, is going to have a better year. Jalen Ramsey's, I still think what they're going to use him as is, inbox safety or a cornerback. Like he's the stud that you want on your team. He's got a couple rookies on the taxi squad, so he has enough depth to kind of fill some gaps there if someone gets hurt. I gave him a B in the safety room and a C overall at the safety room just because I don't see a starter in his safety room. He's got a bunch of guys that are going to play. I could be completely wrong on that, but Hawkins I don't think is a starter, and I don't know of the other two guys necessarily. So it's a C in the safety room for me. I would have liked to got Hawkins in the auction, though.
So I'm with you on the B for the
I gave the cornerbacks. Okay, yeah.
for the cornerback room. I think
Yep.
it's a strong cornerback room, and he's got a couple guys that might work out on his taxi squad, but I think the room is good. Not amazing, but good. And D plus for the safeties. None of these guys start, and yeah, I like Trader, but like when they got Fitzpatrick, that fucked everything up. Like for him, like any chance he had.
I think
So
Anthony Johnson's signable too on his injured reserve. I did look at that, but I thought that he's a signable asset at 25, right? No,
yeah,
maybe I'm
maybe,
thinking of someone
but
else.
I don't think he has a single starter, and yeah,
No,
that's a problem.
probably a little. I like Brad a lot, so I was probably a little liberal with some of those last two or three grades. But
Yeah,
overall, I had him at a 3.14.
285 for me is really low. I had him a lot lower. Sorry, Beefy. I love you, buddy.
Yeah, but if you look at his draft capital and some of the things that he's doing, he's super savvy. I
Yeah.
think he's going to be making moves here before too long. So I think next year he's gonna be a little bit more aggressive, and he's not going to have so much draft capital in reserve. He's smart. He's gonna move up this ladder pretty quick.
All right, Corey. We're almost at 2 hours, and we still got 5 more to go.
Well, we'll keep them in 10 minutes, and we'll be as quick. I mean, we're flowing pretty good here. I don't
Everything's
know
great.
how we can
We're on our
cheapen any of
fourth.
these too much, but
We're fine.
all right, Daly City. He inherited a really good team. Not punching down on him at all. So he had one of the better inherited teams that I remember. This was Sin's team, I believe. I gave him. I'm gonna speak to the first two positions and let you add. I gave him a C at quarterback. I have no idea what's going to go on in Miami. It could be a C plus. It's a cheaper contract, but I don't have any faith in Tua, to be perfectly honest. So I gave him a C there. Um, in the running back room, I gave him an A. He's got the issue I have with this. He doesn't have a surefire starter. He has, well, this should probably be a B, to be honest with you. He doesn't have a surefire starter. He has a ton of capital and three guys that are backups. But he has Vidal, who I don't think's dead yet, and he has Jalen Wright, who I think could have a much better year this year. And he has Devin Singletary that I still think is going to get clock. And Singletary can be done with after next year. Harris, I still think has some life, although I don't think he scores anywhere near 240 points. ETN, from everything I'm reading, he's number 2 on the depth chart. behind Tank Bigsby, and then they have Bayshall Tootin, who they drafted. So I think he's going to have a pretty decent year. It's probably one of those B plus a minus rooms for me, but Jalen Wright kind of moved the needle a little bit for me, and Vidal as well. So he has four guys that I think five guys that he can play this year. So that has to be considered.
Yeah, I mean, like I was A minus to B plus, and I settled on a B plus because the Najee Harris thing's just a little weird. At worst, he has Vidal, which probably gives him a backup, right? Like
Right.
if
That's a good
Harris
point.
was to go down, at least he has the backup numbers for that. I way down on Singletary. I think he could get cut, but like he maybe not because actually he's got too much money. He's not going to get cut. But Scadaboo also has been hurt. So it sounds like Tracy's got a stronghold on it. So we're gonna see how that goes. And then Jalen Wright. Again, going back to like what is he worth when McDaniels gets fired? So I have for quarterback I have a B. Shocker. Like nobody knew that was coming. $15 2 years. It feels like nice little average
Yeah.
price. I thought that was like a pretty good price for like maybe if Tua ends up being okay. And then for it's B plus for that running back room. Like I do think ETN's frisky. I do like Najee Harris if his eye isn't messed up. But there's just like I'm with you. There's like there's enough uncertainty where I'm kind of a little nervous. That's all.
Yep.
And
No,
wide
that's
receiver
fair.
room.
It's definitely more like a B plus for me. Go ahead.
His wide receiver room's an A, and I don't need to say much. Jordan Addison is suspended for 3 games, but he's going to be able to play A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, and Jordan Whittington won that third wide receiver role on top of also kicking kick returns and punt returns. So that's going to be a lot juicier than 93 points. And then when Addison comes back, just firing those 4 guys off, and that's going to be, it's going to be it's a tough room to go against.
Yeah, I gave him an A as well. Waddle I'm much higher on this year. AJ Brown's an absolute stud, and Addison's a great number 2. So, and then he's got some depth there with some other guys that, like I said, can kind of score points. Even Kyle Phillips, I think, will still float around the league a little bit until he lands on a spot, and he's not completely dead for $1. So, I think it's an A room with those 3 studs alone, and yeah, not much to talk about there. On the tight end room, I gave him an A because of Kyle Pitts and having him ranked as high as we do. And then he's got 2 or 3 guys that are good backup tight ends or third string tight ends on their team that he can fill in a bye week or even play every once in a while if he needs another tight end and maybe they score a few points. So I gave him an A, probably more like an A minus, but Kyle Pitts being in there and only 24 has to be an A.
Yeah, I got that. I got the A in there. Or sorry, no, I gave him a B plus. Sorry, A was for the wide receiver room. Yeah, I gave him a B plus, and I think it's because I'm a little less sure about his depth than maybe you are. But I do think again, like it's just like Kyle Pitts is going to be as good as I think he is. Then probably I should have gave him an A minus. But I just think Bellinger is as a backup. But to your point, like maybe he's good enough for as a filler. Josh Wow, I think he's down on the depth chart at this point, but anyway.
He'll probably be their third.
Yeah. So on D.
Go ahead.
D tackle.
Defensive tackle.
I gave a C.
I gave him a C too.
I think there's below average players that he's going to play.
Yep. Defense end, I gave him a B. Arden Keys is a stud. I think he's going to have a better year this year. Bingo, I can't even say his Dio. I think he's got a real chance to help the Bears this year, and I think that's a great signing. And then I was pretty high on Jack Sawyer as a rookie. Probably a little bit of optimism there because typically I like to see two studs, but I'm pretty high on Jack Sawyer, I like it. So that's where he gets a B.
Yeah, I mean, I gave him a B plus because I actually like his rookies as well. You know, like I think Donovan Izaraku might even start. Um, Possibly he's playing well. And then I'm high on your boy Deo Adeyingbo. I'm
Adeyemo.
really curious to see how they use him because I know how Indy used him, and he was like a guy who didn't fit their system that they just had to get on the field when they could because he was an animal. So I could have gone an A there, but I did B plus.
For linebacker, I gave him a B. Omar Spites has been an absolute stud. This would have been a higher room had there been a little bit more consistency out of Christian Harris and if Drew Sanders hadn't gotten hurt. I gave him a B. Spites, I think, is going to be an absolute stud. Amazing contract. Sanders is trending really, really down at this point, and then Christian Harris, I think, is going to have a better year. And then I was actually really high on the kid from Iowa, Jay Higgins. So I think that's just a decent, cheap player in the draft that he got. I think he'll find a squad eventually. He was really underestimated coming out of college because of his size, but that dude can play. So I gave him a B.
Yeah, I did as well. I like Higgins on that taxi squad. I'm a Trevin Wallace fan, even though he's not quite starting yet. He's going to be the third linebacker, so he's not. He's like at least a 67% probably snap guy. With Omar Spades is great. Like Christian Harris has to pop, and there's just like it's a weird setting there. But if he has a bounce back, this room will be better. The depth is dicey with that. Drew Sanders getting hurt, we'll see with that. But it's hard to knock it too much, you know. So
Yeah, I gave him an A at cornerback and a B at safety. It was a pretty easy A for me at the cornerback room. Three guys in the 120 plus range. Cheap contracts, didn't have to spend any money in the auction, and so that's an A for me. And then the B for the two pretty strong safeties in Murray and Blackman. And I thought maybe there was a third in there, but I got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure if those guys are still studs. But again, not a lot of money spent, a little lack of depth. So yeah, I gave him a B.
yeah, an A for the cornerback room. You hit it. It's as solid as it gets. Sandstrill's going to be probably top five again. Horn's great. Jack Jones is going to ball. And then he's got Jahady Barron. I mean, I think he's going to be great if he plays the slot. He might be also Mike Sandstrill. So he might be playing like three cornerbacks pretty regularly and not be mad about it. So, and then I gave him an A minus for this room because those all three of those players are starting. So it's hard for me not to
Yeah.
give somebody an A who has three starters. There's not depth there, so that's why it's the minus. Could have gone either way, but that's where I'm at.
All right. I had Daly City at a 4.65. So there's a lot depending on how well he does as a franchise because a lot of that has to be considered inherited. I think he's got a pretty good base to his team, and from all accounts I've heard from talking to some of the other new owners, he's a great guy, and he lives in Daly City, which isn't too far away from the Bay Area. Um, Good luck to him, and he's got a chance to compete this year in a tough division and earn his money early and invest it wisely.
Yeah, I have 4.57 for him, so a pretty high score as well for me. I think it's a pretty solid team all the way around. The last great American Dynasty best new voice of 2025, as claimed by us. Are you ready?
Yeah, and I honestly was super shocked when I actually went and saw his team. This is the highest graded team in my division, and it's by quite a few points. So let's get into it. I'll do the quarterback position, which is a C, just because I probably could have given a C plus there. I think this year it could be very, very positive. It just really depends on what he does because he's going to have to bump that salary off if Fields is the guy, or if he's not, then he's back to square one. So it probably should be a C plus. But I'm a Fields believer, and if he has another 450-point year and finish in the top 10, then that's an easy kind of signing for me. Although it's a little bit risky. So. um, that's why I landed at a C. He probably is more like a C plus for the year and a little bit uncertain moving forward.
Yeah, I gave him a B minus just because I think $8 to get Justin Fields, and he signed him 1 year. So I thought that was like, it's pretty good just because you're like, I'm going to take this 1 year flyer and then it's off my books, and then I'll find a $1 starter that I like next year. So I think because he put him at 1 year, I put him at a B because at $8 1 year, and it's like, I like cheap QBs there.
For the running back and wide receiver, this is again where I kind of had I found some balance. I really wanted to give him an A just because of Bijan and him being like the number 2 fantasy running back in Dynasty. I think according to our rankings, or even number 1 in a lot of them. I'm not very high on Charbonnet. He could have another good year this year, but I just have a lot of doubts as far as what his longevity is, and there's no depth there. So that's really where he's going to struggle. If he has an injury, he can't start 3. He has one stud that he can move around for other pieces, which I highly doubt anybody would do because it's just too valuable. But this easily could be an A room moving forward if he invests draft capital. I mean, if Charbonnet was a clear set starter and not maybe 2 or 3 on his team, I would have given him a little bit better grade there. But I did balance that out a little bit with his wide receiver room and gave him an automatic A. And I'll let you go first. Yeah, so that one was kind of a tough one. It's more like a B plus combination between those two rooms.
Yeah, I went B plus and B plus. Same thing. It's like there's not enough depth for me to give an A, but Bijan is worth almost a guy and a half, so it's like kind of balances out. But again,
Yeah.
there's nothing for bye week fillers. It's really a tough spot. So I couldn't give it an A. So B plus for me. I wasn't as high on his wide receiver room. Same thing. It's just a depth thing. Like Brian Thomas Jr. and
Yeah.
JSN are going to be amazing, and they're going to put up points that are going to destroy teams at certain weeks. McMillan, I'm super nervous about his role now that Mboka's been looking very good in camp. Now we'll see. Maybe Godwin doesn't come back as soon as he expected, and that can work out. And then I know Junior Bergen's been hyped a lot, but we'll just see how that works out. And so there wasn't enough depth for me to give him an A there, but that's like a strong B plus for me. And then I gave him an A for the tight end room as well. Hawkins.
Yeah, I gave him an A for a tight end. That goes without saying. The wide receiver room, that's an A for me because I can see McMillan, who had a strong year last year, when Godwin went out. He could be a long-term asset that when Godwin's not longer there. I think he's young still, and then he has 2 top 10 wide receivers on both of our grades. So he's got plenty of opportunity to kind of fill in some other spots, get some people in the auction. Would have loved to see him. I don't remember how much money he had for the auction, but probably get one more guy in there that is a number 3 or 4 that he could fill in for some depth. But just because of the 2 studs, I mean, it's hard really not to give him an A for me.
Yeah, I mean, long term, he has some of the most desirable assets in fantasy football, especially in these leagues, right? Like, I mean, he's got Bijan, he's got JSN, he's got Brian Thomas, he's got Hawkinson, and Jonathan Smith. It's like, so maybe this is a year he can compete, but I think next year could be a year where he could be very dangerous.
Yep, absolutely. That's an A tight end room all day. I mean, it's just it's locked and loaded, and he can play both those guys every week. So that depth kind of disappears a little bit at wide receiver when he can play both those guys every week except for their bye week. So
yep.
And then for the defensive tackle room, I gave him an A. He's got 2 studs. He's got Byron Murphy. To me, that's kind of what I want. He's not overpaying for anybody, and then he's got a little bit of depth on some cheaper contracts. So I gave him an A.
Yeah, I gave him an A as well for the D tackle room. Same thing you said. I mean, Kobe Turner, no talking, and then Class Campbell's going to score points. Byron Murphy could have a huge breakout this year, so that's a solid room. I gave an A for the D end as well. You got Myles Garrett sitting in there, James Pierce as a rookie for some future assets, and some good depth pieces. So and especially like real rotating starters with White and Tupilutu. So yeah, A for me there.
Yeah, I mean, I would give him an A if he just had Myles Garrett and James Pierce. So the other two guys that he can play, if he's needs a spot to fill at linebacker, which he's pretty solid at too, which is another A. But to me, that's exactly what I need. Is I need two studs, and I think Pierce is going to be one. He sounds like an absolute animal in camp, so. That's an A room. And then for the linebacker room, he's got, an absolute A. Hanley, Zaire Franklin, and Jack Campbell. To me, that's what I want to see. Three studs, and then a couple other depth pieces to fill the gaps. Even though those aren't the strongest depth pieces, I think with that tight end or the defense end room and the linebacker room, he can find the necessary 6 starters every week to be pretty locked and loaded on defense at those two spots, which are very pivotal.
Yeah, I probably should have gave him an A minus, but I gave him a B plus. Just this is a depth thing. Like I think those assets long term are amazing. As far as like having Campbell and Deion Henley's really stepped up. That's as good of a 3 linebacker room as you're gonna see, but I just don't think the other guys are gonna play. Maybe Gifford gets in there. And the other guy's a free agent, so it's one of those things where it's just like without the depth, I either have to give him an A minus or a B plus, and I've been cranking him with A's, so just knocked him a little.
Quarterback room, I gave him an A, 3 studs. Not much to talk about. He doesn't have any depth after that, but he can pick one up in the waiver wire if he has to. So I'm not worried about that at all. And then at safety, I gave him an A as well. He's got Stone, Petre, Hooker, all 3 solid contributors. I think Petre's going to be better this year. Stone's solid. Not a ton of money spent. And then Ashton Davis, I actually like a little bit too. So I gave him an A for the safety room.
Yeah, Ashton Davis, he's in the mix over there for sure. And then, the other 3 are starters, Hooker and Petre and Stone are all starters. So it's like, I gave him an A, maybe minus there, but I think it's an A. And then I gave an A for his cornerback room as well. It's super nasty. It's only 3 guys.
So the last great American, the LGAD BNV of 2025 is a 5.43 on my scale, which is one of the highest ranks that I've given. I don't know if I was just being nicer, but all my ranks seem to be a little bit higher this week. But I think this is a strong division, and that's a hell of a good team. Probably a little bit of variability, but what was your overall rank?
You got a 5 for me, 5 flat, and that's up there for the whole league, and tops for this. Spoiler alert, but the tops for this division.
Nice. I think I think sometimes you're thinking B plus and A minuses, and then it just depends on where you land. And I think I was maybe just a little kinder this week, but I'm fine with it. Can't be a mean guy all the time.
I like that we differ. That's what we're supposed to do.
All right, on to my little bro. The first D I've given at quarterback ever. $30 spent, complete shit room. You have to drop him and take a salary cap hit of this year. I just don't know how he overcomes that. So, well, he can overcome it, but it's just a D room. There's no future in that room, I don't think.
Wow, we agree. And I don't think I've given a D at the quarterback position. Maybe one other one I gave a D but either way. Yeah, it's just tough, man. Like
if it wasn't a droppable position, it'd be an F,
There's just let's just put it this way, Corey. If it was $1, I would still be like, is this a B? Is this a B minus or a C plus? That's how bad that situation over there is. Who knows, man? Maybe they got a couple. Maybe Sanders is the truth, but yeah, it's a D.
this is tough for me because he's getting back-to-back D's, which I don't think I've given any other team. And I'm not trying to be hard on you, Justin. I don't think he listens to this shit, but I'll tell him to his face when I see him. Um, no starters that I know of yet. Sanders is just super freaking expensive, although he can be cut next year. Ty Johnson, I think, is a valuable asset, especially with what's going on with James Cook, but he's on a 1 year. So I don't know. I think he thought that he could extend him when he traded for him and wouldn't have to tag him. So that was just a mistake he made as a new owner. Um, Otherwise, that probably wouldn't be quite as bad. But there's just nothing there. He's done the best he could. I think he had some money to spend at auction. I think he probably should invest it a little bit more in this room. He has a strong team in a lot of other places. So I know he just feels shitty about where he's at running back, but he's trying to piece it together. Miles Sanders could actually have a decent year this year, but I just don't have a lot of faith in that room.
Yeah, I gave it a C. I mean, like, I think Carlos Washington might be the favorite to be the third there, so there could be something. Maybe he ends up doing some kickoffs. Like, I don't think it's bad. It is really bad because like there's no starters, there's no studs. I didn't want
There's
to
no
go lower
future.
than there is no future in England's dreaming. So yeah, pretty bad. I'm gonna give it a C minus. Actually, I'm gonna change it to a C minus. I'm not giving him a D, but it's
All right, well that's nice. I do love you, Justin. You're a great dude. An absolute A plus of a wide receiver room. If you're going to give Justin Jefferson, two, then he's worth two as well.
yeah,
That's a hell of a start. Zay Flowers is a stud. Chris Olave is a stud. And then I liked how he kind of filled in some depth pieces. He went and got Slayton. I think he can score points again. But when you have three guys that are studs. I think Chris Olave is a little bit scary. He paid a lot for him, and I just with the concussions and stuff, that's a little bit nerve wracking as a long term asset. But I mean, if he plays and he stays healthy, and they find a quarterback, like that's three studs on a team. That's what I want in a wide receiver room with a few guys that can score points and return kickoffs or punts or something else in desperate situations. So that's an A room for me.
easy A. Nothing else to add. Just like studs across the board. Like just a dream of a room. He has some good Slayton's a good piece. Like he's got some flyers and Wallace. I like it. You can't go wrong with it. I give him a C plus for his tight end room though, because I know Chig is the starter there, but I think you and I are pretty bullish on Gunner and Hunter Long. I think is fighting for the second or third tight end, so like it could be good, but it's going to be like a starter, but on the low end. I almost gave it a B minus, but went with a C plus.
Yeah, same for me. A C. I'm high on Gunnar Helm. I think he'll be the starter by the end of the year and probably compete to have more points than Chig this year alone. And I think he's the future of that offense. The way they're utilizing him as more of a big receiver, and then just so I don't have Chig in the top 15. So no depth. C.
Yeah, I
Uh, Defensive tackle, I gave him an A because of Leonard
yep,
Williams.
me as well.
And again, that's what I want to see. I want to see a stud that you can play, and then other guys that can score points. So
Yep,
that's why he gets an A.
that's an easy way to say it. I mean, I agree 100%. I gave him a B minus for D end. Um, I think it's like I don't know. I kept going all over the place. I do think Trey Hendrickson's a stud, even though it's been a weird situation there. If he comes back to his prime, that can be great. But you know, maybe Baron Browning can be something in Arizona. I think so far he's not the starter. And then Joey Bosa, I mean, he's got to be pretty spectacular for me to have done anything more with this, and I just think that's where it belongs. The B range.
Yeah, I struggled with this one just a little bit because there's a lack of depth. I think he has Hendrickson, who's an absolute stud and a game changer. The contract situation will probably get worked out, but he's a beast. Not on the cheap side, but I mean he's worth almost two defensive ends. Joey Bosa, I thought was one of the best deals of the auction to get him at $44. I think he'll kind of revitalize a little bit in Buffalo, a competing team, and if he stays healthy, that's great. If Zadarius Smith signs somewhere, which I'm imagining he will, then he has another little depth piece and a veteran there. I ended up giving him a B, but was more like a B plus for me in the defensive end room. And then for the linebackers, I gave him an A. I liked Harrison a lot more than some people did. Jordan Brooks, he's got Jermaine Pratt, and then I thought the Shaq Thompson signing was okay. So I ended up giving him an A in the linebacker room.
I mean, for me, it was another tough room. I gave him a B. I agree with a lot of your points. Like I like Brooks and I like Pratt, and then everyone else is just upside filler. He has some good contracts, and I just wasn't quite there for an A for me, but B
Yeah.
plus.
I think that was one of the ones where I gave him a B for the defensive end and an A just to kind of balance out his overall score a little bit because I think he has the potential to have an A defensive end room. So a little bit of a favor for my brother there. Cornerback, I gave him an A. Trent McDuffie's a stud. St. Jude scores good points, and Britt Taylor so three studs, cheap contracts. I'm completely fine with that.
Yep, A as well for me at the cornerback room, and then I gave him a B for the safeties. To me, I like Aloha Gilman and Xavier Woods are starters. That Jordan Whitehead might get signed. If he doesn't, then Dave Belton is a rotation guy, and he's kind of in a pretty shallow spot.
Yeah, I gave him a B as well. Same kind of reasons. He's got three guys that are going to play, especially if Whitehead signs somewhere, and then Woods is a stud. So not super expensive. It'll be a little bit different story when Woods goes out next year out of this rotation, but I think he'll figure that out. So yeah, B is definitely better than my room.
Would you have for total score for him?
I had him at a 3.92, which I'm sure is higher than yours because I've been just a lot more kind.
5. I mean, we weren't that far off.
Nice. All right.
Abe, the sausage
These next
king.
two are nicely done, Abe. All right, let's kick it off with the quarterback. This one was tough for me. But I gave him an A because I'm a believer in what he did last year. And the $1.20 contract, I think he ascended last year. I think that's a really valuable kind of A position to be in. So I think they're going to be better this year. I think Bryce Young will be better. So $1 contract, I gave him an A.
Yeah, I gave him a B plus. I just didn't think he's good enough now. But I mean, if they improve in any way, shape, or form, and this is $1 contract, it's an A contract, So I can't harp on an A. I gave it a B.
So this one was tough for me. I'm probably going to adjust it on the spot and give it a C, but I had him at a B, so he's more like a C plus. The Junkins thing is just really, really tough to figure out, man. I do like Isaiah Davis, who I think was a good add and a good trade for him, which I don't think anybody saw as a big piece. But he was sharing time with Braylon Allen last year as the backup to Breece Hall. So I think that contract's a really, really good contract that's extendable for under $20. I mean, Sermon is that's a let go. So if Judkins was the guy and hadn't gotten to his situation, that's a B plus room. Travis Homer is actually third on the depth chart in Chicago right now, which doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot, but he's kind of a journeyman guy that seems to kind of find a landing spot. So I ended up giving him a C plus for this room, and that one, so it values at a C. But if Judkins kind of figures it out, I just don't know what they're going to do. They can't sign him, so they can't play him. So this year's a wash. And then when you start off your career with something that bad, it's trouble, man. So I wish I could have given it a higher score, but that's a C for me.
I mean, I gave him a C plus. Same thing. It's just like Judkins is such a weird situation. You're sitting with no starter in theory, right? Like we can't just be like Judkins' value is the same now. So yeah, I gave him a C plus. I mean, it's tough kind of looking at that and going like this feels better than C plus, but it really is a C plus, sadly. And I gave him a B minus at wide receiver. Alec Pierce, I'm pretty high on. Xavier Worthy, I'm pretty high on as well. I like Jalen Royals. Cedric Wilson was not a terrible pickup, I thought. He has some guys to fill in, so felt like a B minus roster. Not a lot of guys that'll knock your socks off, but some good starters and some good depth.
Yeah, I gave him a B as well. It was a little bit tougher for me to figure out because you had Worthy ranked higher than I. I think you had him as a top 15 player. I didn't necessarily love that he had, Royals and Worthy. I'm not a huge fan of that when you have other options there with that draft pick. I mean, it's a good value buy, probably. I like Cedric Wilson. I mean, he's just always kind of been consistent, but there's no necessarily long-term contract you can give him there. So that doesn't really count for much, I don't think, in the future because it's a one-year deal. Chenault's another piece. I like Alec Pierce, but he's not a number one or two or a three on his team, I don't think, in the long term. So, again, what do you do with that contract moving forward? Um, but it's a pretty depthful room, and it's going to score points this year. I think it's just a little bit more on the low side for me because I don't know what he does in the future with some of these guys, and he would really need Jalen Royals to hit for that to remain a B room.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. For the tight end room, I'm sitting at a B as well. It's still a good B. Like, it's Zach Ertz, but he also has Ben Sinnott. Like if Zach retires or moves on or gets
Yep.
hurt, he's got the backup. And then he's got, Musgrave, who we talked about earlier, who could start producing, but he also has the other backup in Ben Sims. So it's pretty interesting. Like in a weird way, he's set up to be solid, right?
Yeah, no, I mean we were right in line there. I mean it's a depthful room. He's got kind of a C plus starter in Ertz, and then he's like you said, he's backed up by Sanat. So I gave him a B as well. And then Musgrave's a legitimate number two. I think even if he moved on from Green Bay, like he's going to be in the league for a while. So it's probably a C plus to a B minus overall, just because I don't think he has a top 20 guy this year. But I think he's backed up enough there to be dangerous moving forward.
So for
And then
yeah,
go ahead.
D tackle, I gave him an A minus. D end, I gave him an A minus, and I'll just break him down real quick. Like he's got Zach Zeidler, who's awesome. He's a 1 year contract, but he's going to be great. And then he's got Jordan Davis, who I think has a lot of upside that could be a real freak show this year. And then a couple good guys. And then for D end, I mean Jared Verse, awesome. Von Miller could have a resurgence. He's going to start, I think, in Washington. And then Draymond Jones went from D tackle to D end again. Could be good, and David Collins is good depth beats and starter as well. So
Yeah, right in line for those two spots. I gave him an A just because he has everything I would want in a D tackle room. He has the stud, a little bit expensive, but he can downsize, I think, there. And he just signed a contract, I think, a 3 year contract, Siler. So he can franchise tag him, get him for cheaper next year. And then Jordan Davis is a freaking animal. So at some point he's going to ascend a little bit, I think. So. And then I'm super high on Jared Verse, obviously. Like, I mean, I think that was, it was just interesting how he got thrown into a deal. But to me, that's an A based off a rookie season. I mean, that's a dominant rookie season. And then he's got, some other starters and some decent depth and not a ton of money spent. So that's an A for me. And then for the linebacker room, I gave him A as well. I mean, that's about as strong of a linebacker room with Zach Bond being a top 3, 5 player. He's got Edrin Cooper who's ascending. He's got Ernest Jones who's bounced around a little bit, but cheap contract. I don't know why he ended up leaving the Rams, but he's got 3 guys, and then Jamin Davis, like, maybe I don't know.
I think Jamin Davis might
So
get run
I
this
like
year.
that. What was that, Ben?
I think Jamin Davis is going to get run this year, so it's like I gave him an A as well. Like I think it's a solid room, and I gave him an A minus because it doesn't have a ton of depth. But like, man, that's a really nice room. Cornerbacks, I gave him a C plus, and safeties, I gave him a C plus. Corey, and they were just a lot to be desired. You know, there's AJ Terrell as a starter. I don't believe in the other 2 guys; they're backups. It's just no depth and probably zeros. And then he's got the rookie Nick Manouari, who actually isn't in line to start yet, but they'll probably get him on the field. They'll have to. And then I just don't know who else he has because Honey Badger retired on him.
Yeah, we were right in line there. B in the cornerback room. He had Kobe King. I kind of liked as a rookie flyer in the fourth. And I think he didn't have another cornerback on the taxi squad, but I think he's got enough there to give him a solid B. And then I gave him some more favorable points in the safety room because of the rookie who was the best rookie in the class, if I remember correctly, Antonio Johnson, who I was thinking of instead of that other Johnson guy, Jackson, I guess. I mean, it would probably have been a stronger room if Matthew hadn't retired. He needs to get him cut off the roster and free up some of those dollars, and I think that'll give him some options throughout the season to go after somebody and fill a spot there too. Overall, I had Abe as a 4.21, which is a pretty damn good score for a guy that's only been in the league for a couple years.
Yeah, 3.92 for me. It was a little lower on some of the guys there, but still good. All right, hot mess. Let's
And then
get running.
last but not least, I thought I was surprised with this one because Terry has been so competitive. Is in the running for the Capo award this year. I've always undervalued his teams a little bit. He keeps winning. So I could be proven wrong here a little bit, but I don't see him as the front runner to win that Capo award this
No.
year. For the quarterback room, I gave him a B, a 1-year contract with Dak. I think that's better than average. I think Dak could have a big year, but then you have to franchise tag him, and Dak's Dak, so you just don't know what's going to be there. And then they're going to be good enough no matter what that they're not going to draft a quarterback, so he's going to be back to square one starting next year, or he's going to have to sign him for more expensive. So a B, not quite an A for me.
I gave him a B as well. I'm same with you. It's a fair price. He signed him 1 year. Wants to see what Dak does. It doesn't lock him in long. I like it. For the running back room, I probably was too generous and gave a C. I mean, Madison's been looking okay in camp, and Algier has looked. It's going to be number 2. He's going to get some points. I don't know where Eric Gray stands there, but that's pretty dicey running back room if you ask me. So it's a C for me, Corey.
Yeah, I gave him a C too. Just we've talked about it before. He doesn't actually have a starter or a stud, although he has a couple of guys that are going to score points, and it's not strong enough to move above a C for me. I think that's probably right where he's at. I mean, Eric Ray has been in the league a few years and just can't seem to catch on. And they keep drafting running backs, and Dwayne McBride's a free agent, so it's probably a C minus. But I landed at a C for him.
Yeah, I got a B for his wide receivers because he does have Cup and then he does have Cortland Sutton. It's not really good long-term contracts for either of those. And then his depth pieces kind of need to work out. Gibson can work out. Even Johnson could carve a role there. So he has some pieces. It's not the best. It's not the worst. I think it's just a nice B.
Yeah, this one was tough for me too because Cup and Sutton are. I mean, Sutton's gone off his team next year, even though he signed a contract, but he transition tagged him, so there's no longevity there. Although he could go buy him again in the auction, he's going to cost $275. Well, maybe not in this league now, but it should. I like Restrepo. I wish I would have had a draft pick to throw at him. I like Gibson as just kind of a wily return guy. So I ended up giving him a B because I'm just kind of beating hot mess up, but I feel like that's more of a C plus room. Just the lack of real long term studs and a few guys that are going to have to. I like Tyler Johnson a little bit, so I do like the combination of Gibson and Johnson. But outside of that, it's a little bleak looking into the future.
Agree. His room for tight end for me was a B. I mean, Dalton Schultz is okay, but he's super expensive. And then Austin Hooper's a good backup, so it's a good average room. What about you?
Yeah, it's a B minus, but I landed at a B, probably being a little bit generous again. Dalton Schultz's future looks a little bit bleak to me. The rest of them are just Jags, but he has, three guys. Smythe signed a pretty decent contract in Chicago. Maybe that's because they expect to let, Cole Kmet go. So, but that's a 1 year contract. And I don't know why you would ever sign a guy that cheap at 1 year
Yeah.
for $1 because you can just cut him, sign him for five and cut him. It doesn't cost
All
you anything to do it if he
players should
pans
be
out. So
$5.
so to me, I think that's just a mistake, or maybe I don't know. I just don't understand that one. But I signed Irv Smith to a 5 year contract. If he works out, great. If he doesn't, then I'm cutting him for nothing. So, anyway,
Corey, I texted you,
D
but
tackle, I gave him an A.
D tackle I gave him an A minus.
What's that?
I have 4% battery, so let's roll.
Okay.
I got an A
Okay.
minus. I got an A minus at D tackle. Zach Allen is the nuts, and then Yameta's a good backup, so that's all you need. And then I
Yep.
gave
A for me.
yeah,
Uh, Defensive end, I gave him an A as well. TJ Watt really sparked that for me. I probably was leading more like a B plus here, but like
yeah,
anytime you have TJ Watt, he can win a week for you. So
yeah.
I'd like to see more depth there. But
I gave him a B plus as well, just because the other, But to your point, I mean, TJ Watt is a guy and a half.
linebacker room, I gave him a C. I like the signing of Oren Burks in Cincinnati, especially with Pratt gone. Logan Wilson's also there. Ruben Hypolite, I like as kind of a depth cheap piece, but it's just not strong enough in that room and no real depth this year to compete at the linebacker position.
Yeah, it's a C minus at the linebacker position. I gave. I just couldn't I couldn't talk myself into anything else. There's not a lot there. There's not a lot of starters. There's a lot of maybes, and there's no depth. So Logan Wilson is a starter, excuse me, but after that, it's a real tough situation for the season. I'm going to say that. And then I gave
And then
I gave sorry, I'm just going to go real quick. I gave a C plus to his cornerback room and a B plus to his safety room, and I just think he has a lot of corners but no starters. I mean, Darius Williams is going to start. He's kind of in a run, so it's okay. It's not great. And then he's got two starters in Elliott and Powell there. And then actually, sorry, Thompson's a starter as well. So I gave him A minus, right? Oh, B plus. Go ahead.
Yeah, I gave him a C in the cornerback room. Same kind of points that you made. Like he's kind of creeping up there in some of the prices. Just doesn't have a ton of studs, but it's more like a C plus for me. And then I gave him a B just because he has real like a couple of good guys, but he has a transition tag on Deshaun Elliott,
Well,
so
that's
he's
what it
gone
was,
after
yeah.
this year. So
Okay.
I guess that's why I ended up as a B and not a little bit stronger score there. Overall, I had him at a 3.64, which seems like a down kind of season for
Yeah.
Hot Mess, but he could surprise us.
I had him 3.42, and that was a lot lower than I expected to grade him as well. So that was it. So who's your 1 through 8, Corey?
So I have LGAD as number one with the highest score. I have Corleone number two. I didn't rank these out, so I should have. I have Daly City number 3. I have Abe's number 4. I have Bishop Down number 5. I have Fleece City number 6. I have Hot Mess number 7. And then I have Beefy Brutes bringing up the rear end at 8.
That's crazy. We have the same exact rankings, except I have Daly City over Veto. Daly
Well, we're
City's
getting more in
Well, we're
sync
getting
there,
more
buddy.
in sync there,
Bye,
buddy.
bye, bye.
Bye.
We made it before my computer died. That was amazing. And before 3 hours, even though it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. We love you all. Actually, we'll see what the editing can do with that.
Well, you should edit it out after I said
I said in sync. Bye.
That was just a
pop culture reference.
a pop culture reference.
Bye.
There you go.
There you
All right,
go.
buddy. Love you.
All right, buddy. Love you.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
guys.